Welcome to Paulogia Live, where a former Christian takes a look at the claims of Christians, live here from Paulogia Studios in rugged Nova Scotia, Canada, where my dog Bella, after Beagle Day, is being a little bit noisy, so hopefully that's all good, but that's all right. I'm very excited because we have some great guests joining me today. We have Godless Engineer in the center with a big smile. Are we going by, what are we going with? Are we going with John? We going with GE? We do not care?
Either one. I mean,
Just-
everybody knows me by the toilet name, and so Godless Engineer also works. And I pre-gamed for this show. I'm already one Bud Light in, so
I also am one rum and coke in because we will be talking about Answers in Genesis, but we'll get to that in a second because we need to introduce our other guest. It's been a long time since I've worked with Jackson Wheat.
It's true.
Jackson,
it's been far
welcome.
too long.
Yeah, no, it's great to see you. And I got excited when I saw Jurassic Park, and you two gentlemen were all in on Jurassic Park, going blind. So
I
Yeah,
love me some Jurassic Park.
right. Fun fact: I will be visiting the sets that are still up in Hawaii in
Nice.
about 2 weeks. I'm gonna actually visit the sets there.
wow.
I've been to Universal once a long time ago. It's the closest I've been.
The not like the theme park.
Yeah.
Universal, Studios. The Jurassic Park ride is pretty good when it's open. It's closed more often than it's open, I think. We already have a super chat, everybody.
Whale peen.
That will be unfortunately, that is my legacy. Paul, did you tell her what I sent you the other day?
I did, but I haven't told anyone else, so you may as well share the story now.
So I work at the aquarium here in Shreveport, and we do outreach stuff. So I went over to our local university, or one of our local universities, LSUS, and I gave a talk, just saying, hey, if you're interested in working with us, you definitely should. And the tech guy who set up, the screen and microphone and everything, after the show, he says, like, hey, didn't you used to have a YouTube channel? And I was I had a swell of pride for a moment. Then he goes, yeah, you made a video about whales, didn't you? And it all left.
Oh, so he didn't say the appendage.
No, he said whale video, and I was like,
oh. So yeah.
Well, I wonder if Shannon is actually talking about Kent Hovind mentioning whale penis to me, which is a kind of a meme over on my channel now.
Oh, is it? That's great.
No,
It is.
But around here, it's the we. Go ahead. Well, you go ahead. Finish your story.
Well, I was just going to say, so I was in a debate with Kent Hovind, and for some reason, he's talking about vestigial limbs, right? And so he's talking about the whale's pelvis, and he's like, the whale has a 15-foot penis, and he just waves it out there, and he uses the pelvis in order to guide it into the female's area. And so like he just brings up whale penis out of nowhere, and I'm just sitting here like, I'm sorry, Ken, you cut out for a second. What did you say? To see if I could get him to say whale penis yet again. And I mean, he was like, are you a pervert or something? And I'm like, yes, Ken, I'm a pervert.
Penis? God, which is funny because even given that like those bones are like the site of muscle attachment, they are still vestigial. They do not serve a walking function. So
right,
exactly.
Whatever.
No amount of maneuvering your giant penis in water is going to give it new function.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are here tonight because I discovered a while back that Answers in Genesis has decided during the COVID, when people couldn't come to their attractions the way they wanted people to, that they started up. I don't know if you guys are even aware of this. You probably are. They started their own streaming service to compete with Netflix and Disney Plus.
Okay.
It's called Answers TV for a lovely, I think, $10 a month. You can subscribe, and they make content that you have to pay for to get, and they churn out all kinds of garbage. But one of their shows is called Tilt Shift, and that is their movie review show, where they review movies as current as Jurassic Park.
From 93.
Right. So it's very it's very timely. Hey,
I mean, Paul, you have
Yeah.
to. You got to give him something, right? I mean, Kent Hovind typically uses textbooks that are from like the 60s and 70s. So this is pretty recent for creationists. 90s.
True.
Yeah.
I'm guessing John is celebrating poker wins and not. And
So
now what's
so
happening
sorry.
here.
Yes, I just want a kind of a big pot. So I'm sorry.
Nice.
I just reacted.
Woo! Well, we're gonna pretend that you're having fun along with us. That's what we're gonna pretend.
No, I'm so sorry. I'm totally listening to y'all. And
No, I
everything
know
like
you
that,
are.
but
I'm just enjoying.
Yeah.
So anyway, so on my channel we have now. I had Arn Raw and Dapper Dino on to review their review of Godzilla. And then we had Matt Dillahunty and Arden and Shannon on for a charity stream where they reviewed Avengers Endgame.
A good movie. I liked it.
So now we are going to watch Answers in Genesis review the Jurassic Park trilogy. The first 3 Jurassic Park movies is what they'll be covering.
Okay.
Because this is on a streaming service, I sorry about this long introduction, but because this is on a streaming service, they feel free to play long copyrighted sections of the movies along with the audience because they don't care. No one's gonna bust them. But if I put it on YouTube, problem. So I spent a lot of time last time chopping up all the sound effects. So I actually did something different this time. When you see the movie clip, it's gonna have I'm doing a bit of a cartoon visual on it and some sound alteration, which I did a bit of a test and does seem to pass YouTube's. So we're all familiar with the movies. We know what the scenes are. So we'll just see if it works and if the audience likes it. So when it gets to the movie clips, it's going to be weird. Go ahead.
I don't know about you guys, but like I have a near like photographic memory of movies. Like you describe a movie scene and I will know what that movie scene is. Like, and I can name you like the title of it and everything like that. Like I could describe the movie. So yeah, I'm totally prepared for just hearing them describe a scene.
Very good. Well, I need to get you onto one of my other co-hosts on this channel. We play there's a website out there called Framed, which is kind of like Wordle for movies. Have you seen it? Where it shows 6 consecutive frames of a film and they go from like more obscure to like more obvious. And you have to try and guess like based on the really obscure frame. Anyway, John, you and I should challenge you to Framed at some point, but we'll do that another time. All right. So let's get ready for Tilt Shift. So this is going to be a very casual stream. We're not even going to pretend that we're going to get all the way through it because maybe we will, maybe we won't. It's like half an hour long or so.
Okay.
But that could take hours and we won't necessarily go hours.
Yeah,
if anyone
half
sends
an hour typically takes like 2 hours on my Thursday streams. So,
yeah. So
I'm here for anything.
Well, we'll see what they got, and we'll see if we're still having fun. But we're not going to save super chats for the end because who knows when that's going to be. So if anyone sends a super chat on any of the channels that we're on, we're just going to roughly interrupt the proceedings. So feel free to communicate that way. Have fun in the chat. If you enjoy a lovely beverage, get yourself a lovely beverage because this is going to be a good one. All right. Here we go. Tilt Shift.
This isn't your typical movie review show. We're not saying that you should or shouldn't watch the films we review, and we're not detailing all the objectionable material in them. Several websites do that already. Also, the brief clips used for humor, we're not endorsing those shows or actors either.
Did you have something to say there, Jax?
No, I'm sorry. I was just puzzled. We're not commenting. I don't know. We're not commenting on whether or not you should or should not watch it. I feel like movie review shows don't typically do that. They're just like, we're just going to comment on it. It's up to you whether or not you want to watch it, you know?
You would think, but I mean, this is a Christian commentary show, so they got to cover their bases.
It's true. They weirdly, even in that weird niche that would be young Earth creationism, they would be divided on things like, is it okay to watch a movie? Like those communities, right? Like they have a very tight Mennonite community like I came from, which would be like absolutely no. So they do have that little minor spectrum in their niche.
Have you guys seen that meme? I guess it's not really a meme. It's a picture of like it's a like a Muslim group watching. I think it was Finding Nemo, or no, Finding Dory, and it says like Inshallah they find her on the poster. It's very funny. I don't know. I just thought of that. Sorry.
I have not seen that one. I was going to look for it. Anyway. Also, do you guys know what tilt shift is in real life? Like the word and phrase and how it's used in the movie business?
Mm-mm.
So tilt shift is a perspective that you give. It's a camera effect that lets you film real settings, but makes it look fake. So you can like film a real farmyard, for example, but it looks like you're actually filming a toy farmyard, and it's a very esoteric film. It's not often needed or used, right? But it's just a weird effect, and I just laugh, having been in the film business with this. That's what they picked. It's like, yeah, we take real things and we make it fake. It's like, okay, good job, everybody. Yeah, okay. If you in the audience, when this is all done, look up tilt shift movie camera methods. Oh, yeah.
Either. Instead, we're examining the ideas and philosophies found in these movies from a biblical perspective to help you shift your thinking to align with the Bible. Tilt Shift. Real talk about real ideas.
Hi, welcome to Tilt Shift. I'm Brian.
And I'm Tim.
And this is a show about real talk about real ideas. And today we're covering kind of a special episode. We're covering 3 movies.
3 movies at once?
3 at one time. So we'll be here for about 4 hours and then, just kidding, all right? But we're going to cover the first 3 Jurassic Park movies from our perspective, which is a biblical perspective. Mm-hmm. And it's worth mentioning that we do work for a ministry called Answers in Genesis that has the ARK encounter and the
I've never heard of this before. Whoa.
So I mean, I find it really interesting that a lot of these apologists and like, I guess maybe Christians in general, they love to view every single thing in their life through a Christian worldview, like through a worldview of, does this really glorify Christ? Like, why do you need to think about that? Like, why do you incessantly need to think about whether or not this glorifies Christ? I mean, I get the theological reasons, but like practical reasons, I just don't get it.
Yeah, when I was a Christian, it was okay to like take a couple hours off and watch a movie. Like you could.
Yeah, I never think about glorifying the nothingness that I worship, obviously. As an atheist, so
well, that's on you. Our Mark Rothenbuehler, thank you for the $5 super chat. AIG gives us the warning on movies, so no one from their conservative audience sues the bejesus out of them. Maybe. We do have to keep in mind that like this is, you have to pay them $10 a month to even see these.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the moron that is doing that. But so like this is not even just their own audience. This is like an inside core of their inside audience. So they're going to be assuming that everyone's right on board with everything they're going to say.
Right. Yeah.
Lucky. That's why I've got the ARK Encounter T-shirt right now.
The Creation Museum T-shirt.
I like the T-shirt. Very nice.
How's their Taking Back a Rainbow effort working?
Well, I went to a drag show this past week. I don't think it's working very well. So rainbows everywhere.
I mean, can you imagine the audacity of like thinking, oh, we're going to take back the rainbow, as if you have some kind of like corner market on splitting the light spectrum. Like that, that amazes me in general.
Have you ever heard the theory from young Earth creationists that there were no rainbows prior to the flood?
No, I haven't. I haven't heard that one.
I mean, hold on. That actually tracks because they think that physics actually works.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So I mean, I
it's-
totally believe that they think physics work differently and that the rainbow didn't exist and all this other kind of shit.
Right, because there was no
there
was no nuclear decay and whatnot before like the global flood and everything, right? So yeah, I guess that tracks. That follows.
But they think. So I heard this early in my career on YouTube, but it was a place that didn't think it ever rained prior to the flood, and they thought if there's no water, there can't be rainbows. I guess.
So there are no waterfalls either.
Like that was the thing. Like there's no waterfalls. There's just
no mist,
no prisms. So there's nothing.
Fascinating. Okay.
Yeah. Whatever.
The T-Rex, right? And so we deal often with the issue of dinosaurs giving biblical answers, and there are really good biblical answers about
We
dinosaurs.
both speak on.
Oh
this
yeah, they're
issue.
so
Speak of
good.
this issue.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for a
good.
pun.
Like Paul and I have went through Ken Ham's fucking book, right? And it's so ridiculous because like they have like Adam and Eve sitting there with a T-Rex, and the T-Rex is eating like a fucking orange or something, and
Watermelons. Yeah, the teeth are for crushing watermelons. Yeah.
what the fuck? Why do you think they have sharp fucking teeth, Ken? Oh, it's for fucking biting watermelons. No.
Look at those buffalo that have all these like canines and carnassials for grinding grass. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Grinding grass.
So
Yeah,
true. That's how that
great.
works. Yeah.
So these these two gentlemen, right? We have Dr. Tim Chafee. He's a doctor now.
Okay.
He got a PhD in theology.
Oh, I take
So
it back.
he's well versed to talk about dinosaurs, obviously. And we have Brian Osborne, the other gentleman. He's in charge of homeschool curriculum.
Of course he is. Yeah.
And he has a bachelor's in education.
Okay.
So who better to tell us about dinosaurs than
I mean, is that any different from like their normal shtick? I mean, you have you got Georgia Purdom talking about geology, you got Andrew Snelling talking about biology,
I think you have those flipped.
I mean, they do.
George is a geneticist.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying. They just play fast and loose. If you have a doctor in front of your name,
they're like Casey Luskin over at the DI is another one. He's got his degree, his PhD, respectable, is in geology. He doesn't ever talk about geology. He talks about anthropology and he talks about genetics. And it's like, dude, none of these are your field. What are you doing? So yeah.
And we should clarify for people who are unfamiliar. Jackson is the closest we have on our panel to a biologist. Jackson,
I'm an engineer, by the way. Like everybody questions whether or not I'm a real engineer or if I'm just bullshitting. I'm a real engineer.
I'm a former engineer. Now a YouTuber. So go ahead, Jackson.
I learned yesterday, GE. I think you might appreciate this. I learned yesterday because one of the classes I'm teaching is like intro to science, and so we talk about like intro physics, that sort of stuff. And so I've taken not nearly as many as you, but I've taken a few calculus classes, and talking about velocity and acceleration, like position with respect to velocity, acceleration, etc. And like how each of those are like a derivative of each other. So like your velocity or your speed, I guess I should say, is a derivative of position, and acceleration derivative of that. And I didn't realize that you could take that further. And then so like the next derivative of acceleration is called jerk. And then the fourth derivative is snap. The fifth is crackle. And the sixth was it snap, crackle, pop? Yeah. Because I guess some engineer thought it'd be very funny. So
nerd jokes. Gotta love them.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway.
No worries. Mark Bernkov, $2 super chat. Glad I left early for this epic Paul and GE and Jackson team up, but I bet he couldn't put Jackson in for his $2.
I was able to talk to Mark recently.
Oh, awesome.
And Mark's a fantastic guy.
As are many people in the chat. Plus the couple of jerks. You know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
issue. We've written on it in
We
different
both love
ways.
dinosaurs.
We do, right? And so it's something that we enjoy talking about. And so we're kind of excited about this one in particular for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, now obviously with the Jurassic Park movies, everybody knows, okay, there's a lot of evolutionary
Right.
teaching in there. And, you know, a lot of people think, well, this is
Not
science,
particularly.
and
It's a horror movie about like the evils of capitalism. It's not really about why evolution is cool. But whatever. I mean, there's a little bit, you know, here and there.
But Jackson, it's got
Creationist, you
Mr.
don't know what you're
D&E
talking
in
about.
it.
Oh, that evil DNA. Good thing I got that taken out.
No, no,
Just
no,
like the
no. You got to
mRNA.
pronounce it right, Jackson. It's D&E. Like, that's how the original guy pronounced it. Oh, it's Mr. D&E.
Oh, Richard Attenborough.
When I was a kid, I was like, why are you fucking saying D&E? Like, what the fuck is that?
This is dang
think-
British.
The only evolution you would need to accept the premise, I think, would be that frogs have a common ancestor with dinosaurs, right? Other than that, like, you could accept
Well,
that
no,
God
because that one
created
was
them.
about them being. They could switch sexes. They could be like sequential.
No, but they
hermaphrodite.
they plugged the DNA, right, with
Right,
frog
right.
DNA.
But
So you'd have to accept
Yeah.
that there's some kind of commonality enough that you could plug the gaps with
Yeah,
amphibians.
I guess that's true. I need to go back and. It's been. I mean, yeah, that's true.
Well, yeah.
But
So
other than
I
that,
mean,
it could be. Go ahead, G.
Well, I was just gonna say that, yeah, I mean, they plug the gaps with it, but that's just because frogs have a very versatile DNA as far as like the movies go. Like, I don't know how much that
Right.
actually corresponds to reality, but in the movies, they make it out to be like amphibians really correspond to the reptile DNA or the DNA that exists in dinosaurs. And so that's why they could insert it in there. But if you look at further than what they're actually looking at, the Jurassic World, the first one there, talks about how they were able to work in a multitude of different animals into the DNA. And so it only tracks that they were looking for what DNA would cohesively mix with the DNA that they were seeing from the reconstructions of what was contained in the mosquitoes. I feel like all of this is very pseudoscience-y and very
Well, sure.
Yeah.
and very
But-
not maybe a little bit based in science, but like more based in science fiction.
I guess what all I was going for was like, you know, they were said, well, this is full of evolutionary ideas,
Mhm.
and I really feel
Right.
like, as Jackson pointed out, there's very few. You could accept that God created dinosaurs on day 5
Mhm.
and still be on board with most of what most of Jurassic
Right.
Park.
True. Yeah.
I
True.
think. So,
I think you're right. Yeah. They
Yeah.
really only say the millions of years thing early on, then you really don't. Yeah, you don't bring it back up
exactly.
really at any other point. Yeah. True.
if you believe in this old ancient book, we're not going to hammer every single time evolution is mentioned because
We'd be here for hours.
Yeah, we're going to show select clips, not just about that issue, but other things. And there's actually some good things that are being taught in these films
Sure,
as well.
that's right.
So we're going to look at both elements. We'll hit on the evolutionary stuff. Now, these films are rated PG-13, all 3 of them. The first one for intense science fiction terror. That's probably a good description.
Yeah.
The second and third one for intense sci-fi terror and violence. So pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Because you
Oh no!
Hide your children.
PG-13. It offends God, guys.
get dinosaurs eating people and everything. So we're not saying,
Not a
hey,
bloodshed
watch
in
these
that
with
sense.
your families.
Yes, no.
That's not the point here.
Which I'm always surprised when I do a talk about dinosaurs. I give it to kids at different churches, and I ask how many kids have seen Jurassic Park, and the majority every time raise their hands,
yeah.
even like 5-year-olds. I'm like,
Oh
really?
my
When my
gosh,
son was
you're
5,
not
yeah.
13 yet. Oh my Betsy.
You know,
You're telling
it
me this
amazes-
8-year-old?
you know, it amazes me that like Jurassic Park can present this very, I guess, Hollywood version of what dinosaurs would be. And even that is too violent for the Christian community. While at the same time, they were like, oh yeah, dinosaurs existed when Adam and Eve did, and even after the flood, and they all subjected the dinosaurs to, like, you know, being ridden and stuff. Because like Paul and I have looked at the Ken Ham like children's book, which we've got a video on our on my channel, my channel, of us going through that. And it's like they picture the dinosaurs as being very complacent, like they're very much just another animal, like cows or horses or anything like that. Like they don't depict this very violent a view of dinosaurs, because they are predators. Like the dinosaurs that are depicted as the quote unquote villains of the Jurassic Park series are very much villains of the show, and they never depict them as villains until after the flood. And even then it's like, oh yeah, they totally tamed dinosaurs and then they hunted them to extinction. Like, are you fucking serious? Like in Jurassic World, an advanced recovery team went out to track a dinosaur and they got killed like instantly. And you think that these primitive people were able to take out dinosaurs entirely? Like, it seems ridiculous to me.
I just need to check, John, to make sure you're aware that these are movies, right?
I mean, I get that. I get that they're movies, but at the same time, like the movie versions of these animals are not representative of what they actually were.
Yeah.
And so if you think about what they actually were, I feel like they would probably be the ones that are dangerous. They would probably be more dangerous than we have created them to be in the movies, you know?
At the Creation Museum, which is Answers in Genesis, it's not there anymore, but the exhibit before you got in, that was the part where you mill around while you're waiting to pay, was their dragon legend portion. I've been there. So you saw that section, and then that was the one place where they definitely did appear. They made them appear like villains, because what they wanted to say was like the Arthurian legends of beating dragons was probably based in some version of reality where they were, you know, actually fighting T-Rexes.
So I have a whole video on my channel of me and Casey and Telltale Atheist, when he used to be Telltale Atheist. We were going through the Creation Museum, like not just the ARK encounter, but the Creation Museum, and like we were seeing all of that shit, and it was crazy to see them portray dinosaurs in this light. You know, like they had whole mobiles assembled to like portray medieval knights fighting dinosaurs, or what they were calling dragons at the time. Like they were like, oh, well, the dragons are actually dinosaurs. And it's like, the fuck are you talking about? No.
No. The biologist bum wants to know, have you all seen the ARK Hovind movie where a T-Rex eats a watermelon out of a tree? Well,
yeah,
yes.
Genesis Paradise Lost, right?
Yeah, I actually recently compiled all of my Genesis Paradise Lost videos into one 3-hour video. So you can go find that on my channel.
So that was back when Strike was alive.
That's correct. Yep.
And he messaged me because I was at LSU Baton Rouge at the time, or the LSU, and he's like, "Hey Jackson, this is coming out. You want to go see that? We'll both go watch it tonight. Then we'll do a stream where we talk about it." I was like, "Sure, okay, why not?" So went to the theater, and because the theaters up here in Shreveport don't typically show stuff like that. Like they don't do the limited release sort of stuff. But down there, they did have theaters that would do that sort of stuff. So I could go see that and other movies, like other creationist movies and stuff like that, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite clips to use over and over on my channel. I love using the watermelon eating. The dinosaur eating a watermelon out of a tree is one of my favorites. Love it. All right. Let's get back to these guys. We're never going to be done.
I'm not sure. I might be putting my wife in a bad light here, but she would show my son Jurassic Park, like the old Godzilla.
She won't mind.
Like every night before bed, he'd have to watch a little bit, not the part where they're eating people, but just to see the dinosaurs.
Okay.
And he always wanted to see the dinosaurs, so that he would get a little bit of that almost every night. He didn't have nightmares, as far as we know.
You show the sauropods, right?
Weren't
the
you there?
Dinosaurs, not the
Did you never ask? My wife showed our son movies. I didn't ask him what he thought.
No, Tim is demonstrating, how Christian families work.
I like to be
the women's
and away
the
from
women's do the child rearing.
the women's.
I come in case someone needs a strap.
Oh,
Not the metasaurs or
Not the
whatever.
metasaurs, right? Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, there's all sorts of evolutionary teaching. And there's also a lot on the dinosaur to bird evolution,
Tons of
controversial thing. So
There
we're
That's
isn't,
a major
though.
theme throughout the movies.
But one of the things that a lot
not in the first one.
No, I will get it. So there is that one conversation though. You're right.
Yeah, there's like
right.
a
That
little
is-
bit. There's
there's
a tiny bit.
Yeah, so there are two little things there that would be
Yeah.
a bugaboo for these guys. Fred Harvey, $10. Oh no, dinosaur bone fossil. Has there ever been found? The marks of any human weapon might leave. Oh, okay. Humans did not kill dinosaurs. I don't know. Have any of you ever heard of? I've never heard of a fossil that had like a spear mark or anything like that.
Oh, from non-avian dinosaurs, no. There are lots of like mammoths and recent critters who do. Yeah, but non-avian dinosaurs, no.
I mean, the best that AIG has come up with are the sorry, I can't remember the exact fossils, but it's like where the human footprints are alongside.
Oh, the
dinosaur
burdick
footprints.
print. Sorry,
Right.
the other one, the Glen Rose formation in Texas.
Yeah, I
and the
mean
funny-
that's the best that they've come up with.
So, and the funny thing about that one is most of, I think AIG, I know ICR, but I believe AIG is at the point where they're like, "Hey guys, don't use that one anymore. We look bad." The Glen Rose, I think. Well, the burdick print is another one. The Ica stones, the Acambro figures, all these things that are like you have to be way out in like crank creationist like pseudo archaeology land, because the main organization's like don't do that.
Let's leave those to the Hovinds.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
people don't think about when they're thinking about creation, evolution, or science and faith. They don't understand the assumptions that go into the evolutionary teaching. And the movie actually points some of those out.
It does.
Maybe they're not always deliberately calling attention to it, but we're going to look at a few clips where we're seeing those assumptions, and
Because no one
call
else
those
cares.
All movies, all other science movies, all other movies, the science is perfect. No one's ever found a flaw in any movie science before, just Jurassic Park.
Mhm.
I have to say that the movie Hackers really grinds my gears. Okay, this is tangentially related because of how they're talking about Jurassic Park. Yeah,
Yep.
And the movie Hackers just really kind of gets me. And I feel like anybody that's into biological evolution would probably feel the same way about the Jurassic Park series.
Probably, yeah. That's not how any of this works. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because Michael Crichton, he wrote a lot of sci-fi books, and I read both of the Jurassic Park books years ago, and it's interesting, and like you said with the frogs, he does his best to try to make it seem more realistic. Dinosaurs were share common ancestors with frogs, so yeah, they could just take some frog DNA and put it in there to fill in the missing gaps, or there was something with prions in the second book. I don't remember what it was.
Well, his big innovation was just the whole idea that maybe in amber,
right?
There could be blood somewhere, So that was
right, 100%. Right.
If we just had the blood, then we could totally recreate these animals, and I think that's a totally plausible thing. But the problem is that we don't have like that at all in reality. Like, I don't think that we could recreate dinosaurs in reality.
Which actually, you just reminded me. I totally forgot. I don't know why I didn't have this on the forefront of my brain for this conversation, because I'm sure they'll bring it up at some point. But the actual, like, because creationists would argue that, or they do argue that the soft tissue we found, it's not really soft, it's not tissue, but whatever. The soft tissue we found is evidence of dinosaurs being young, right? Mm-hmm. And on that idea, shouldn't we be able to like get sequenceable? That's a word now. Material right? That we could then say like, oh, hey, this is Triceratops DNA, this is Tyrannosaurus DNA, or collagen fibers or what have you, because it's not DNA, it typically gets preserved. Although I think there's one fairly recent fossil that had like evidence of chromosomes in it, but again, no one's trying to sequence it because we all know it's broken down far beyond the ability to sequence at this point. And I mean, I guess you could try with the collagen, but I'd be surprised how far you'd get with that.
Listen, Jackson, I'm sorry to Paul, but listen, Jackson, the fact that we can pull up like dinosaur genome means that the Earth is only 6,000 years old. I mean, that's the only explanation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Paul. No, you go ahead. Nose goes.
I was just saying, one of my pet peeves is that they're constantly saying, including the latest creationist thing I saw last week, they constantly are representing the soft tissue as including blood.
Yes.
Which drives me crazy because there is no blood. There's the iron of blood cells, of former blood cells.
Right.
Yeah. But there's no, like, exactly, if we got what they claimed, which is blood and blood vessels, then yeah, we'd have something sequenceable. We absolutely would. But we don't. That's not what we got.
Yeah, it's like literally we haven't found tissue yet from non-avian dinosaurs. Collagen is not a tissue because remember, the definition of a tissue is a component, or it's like multi-celled, right? Multi-celled like layer. We don't have that. We don't have these layers of cells or sheets of cells. We just have protein fibers like collagen, and we have the heme or the porphyrin molecules, or we have there was some like was it chitin and crinoids or something like that.
Yep.
So like it's all proteins, or it's like the protein remnants of stuff. It's never the cells or the tissues. The oldest sequenceable material that I'm aware of right now is 2 million year old material from Greenland, which was done I think last year. And they found in permafrost, they did like eDNA, which is environmental DNA. So you take a sample and you can see what different types of DNA are in it. You can sequence all those out and be like, oh, if you just go out in the woods here, like, and then do that with the soil, you can be like, oh, rabbits live here, deer live here, foxes live here. But they did that with permafrost. That was 2 million years old. And they found like mastodon DNA, and as well as like rabbits, black swans, things like that. So it's a really cool study.
So we're bringing mammoths back. That's what you're saying.
I have a spicy take on the whole de-extinction thing. I don't think anyone will like it, but anyway, especially given the video we're watching.
But would it make a good movie? That's all anyone cares about.
It already has.
That's right. Okay. I'm in the wrong window.
And then in the second film, they actually call that out, which is kind of interesting. So let's take a look at our first clip here. This is from the first film.
One of the earliest carnivores, we now know Dilophosaurus is actually poisonous, spitting its venom at its prey, causing blindness and eventually paralysis, allowing the carnivore to eat at its leisure. This makes Dilophosaurus a beautiful but deadly addition to Jurassic Park.
Ooh, Laura Dern.
Pretty scary. We didn't even get to see Dilophosaurus there.
He's off taking a nap or something.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes.
Is that the same type of thing that because that looks like the animation for the old like Lord of the Rings movie. That's what that reminds me of.
It kind of does, actually, yeah.
I don't know if you did the same.
I didn't. So there's literally a plug-in in After Effects. It's just called Cartoon.
Oh, okay.
That I threw on and cranked it up so that it would flatten it as much as possible, and then I slightly chipmunked the voices so that it would so it would avoid that copyright.
Okay, I gotcha.
Don't tell on me.
The biologist bum points out, the first clip is from the least accurate dinosaur. Yeah, so true. I mean, maybe they'll bring this up, but yeah, we have literally zero evidence that Dilophosaurus could spit venom. There's no evidence for that. There's a really funny picture, however, of I think it's the Pope giving a speech, and like he has this kind of like a disc of cloth around him, and there's like a gust of wind, and so it inverts, and he looks like the Dilophosaurus. And I thought that was very funny.
Awesome. Yes, they did take lots of creative liberties. In before Kleenex collagen is the super chat that we got. So thank you, Balthazar228. I don't understand the reference, so I don't know.
Brian, what it said about Dilophosaurus, is that a problem from the point of view of the story, the movie?
No, it's not a problem with the movie at all, right? The movie's built on the premise that they've brought these creatures to life. Now they can observe the creatures within the movie and learn stuff about them. So in the movie, in the storyline of the movie, it makes sense for them to make that comment. But understand, in reality, just looking at the bones of dinosaurs today, we have no idea if it can actually do that like it does in the movie. And so
there's only like, I think there's been arguments about, if Dapper's watching, he's probably going to call me on it if I get this wrong. I believe is it Sinornithosaurus? Which has like on each side, it's not the front tooth, but it's like one of the side is like extra long. And there was an argument that maybe it was venomous, but I don't think at least from what I've seen, that like the argument isn't very strong, or haven't heard that it's very strong. So, but that's the only instance of like an actually potentially venomous dinosaur. So it just, I mean, yeah. So the birds, the modern birds that are, well, they're poisonous. They're not venomous. There aren't any venomous birds, but there are birds like the hooded pituhui, which have poisonous feathers, but obviously it's not the same. So
poisonous feathers? How does that work?
It's from the food that they eat. Like they can incorporate like alkaloids and things like that from the bugs that they eat into their skin. It's the same that actually poison dart frogs do. So the dendrobatids, they eat various arthropods, and then they incorporate like the alkaloids and various other. I'm blanking on the chemicals, but they basically just incorporate these things into their skin, and that's what makes them toxic.
Okay.
You are what you eat.
So it works within the movie paradigm. We're not picking on that, but it is, understand, an assumption not based in fossil reality. Right. And there's a really clear distinction as we talk about what's happening in the movie and also in reality, and that is, as you talk about science, there's a difference between real science, observable, testable, repeatable, and falsifiable, stuff done in the present with real observation.
Yes.
I feel like I'm getting called out. Also, he clarified, Kleenex is a tissue, but collagen isn't. That was the joke.
Oh, I like it.
I get it now. I'm curious what the thinking then is for Tiktaalik or Diarthrognathes or Sphecomirama or Microraptor. These organisms that were predicted based on the current evidence. So the experiment, in the sense, was going to a site that matched the time period where this thing would be expected to have lived in the past and digging for it, right? I think that's an experiment. You're taking data and you're doing the research, which is, hey, I'm going to go to this island up in, what was it? What was that island? Ellesmere Island. I'm going to go to Ellesmere Island in Arctic Canada because it has sediment of the right age to match the evolution of fish to tetrapods. Or likewise with Microraptor, it's a basally derived dromaeosaur, and it has feathers. It's just covered in feathers, top to bottom, and it has this asymmetrical flight feathers on its front and back limbs, which is exactly what was expected for like paraves. Diarthrognathes is an early relative of mammals, so it has this like double jaw joint, which was predicted like decades earlier if mammals evolved from reptiles, because we have a different type of jaw joint than they have. RJ wrote about this in his book Evolution Slam Dunk, and then we talked about it again in our book, The Rocks Were There. But like, I think those could all be considered experiments, right? That's observable. There was a test that was done on this hypothesis.
Well, for
Seems
me,
like observational science to me.
What they deliberately want to not do is, like, they love the word repeatable in there, and what they don't care about is that what science actually cares about is predicting future data. And that is normally what how the repeatable part lies. Like, oh, well, if I keep dropping this rock, I'm going to get the same acceleration every time. That's predicting future data. So that's why forensic science works, right? It's like, oh, an artery spatters this way, or, if you slice it, or, there's different, or a bone breaks in this certain way based on this type of injury. You're predicting future data, which is, of course, as you pointed out, absolutely what biology does with evolution. It's like, oh, well, we think Tiktaalik is the famous example, right? We think that somewhere at this time, at this deep level, we should be finding something that is roughly a tetrapod. And boom, so can we go and find a Tiktaalik every week? No, but that's that's not what's needed for the repeatability. So that's a pet peeve.
I think further on that point, it must also be pointed out that like your ability to repeatedly get the same conclusion based on a test, right? So if my team of scientists looks at Tiktaalik, will we reach the same conclusion as John's team and your team, Paul? Will we all come to the same conclusion about that through our observation or through the test that we do? Like, that's also repeatability. We are repeatedly reaching the same conclusion. If I look at it and say, well, this thing is a stem tetrapod, and then John's team comes along and says, no, this is a stem lungfish. Well, that's not. Well, then clearly my observation hasn't been repeated, and so like that's also factors into it. But again, they're never going to talk about that because they never get to that point because it's just kind of dismiss everything with the boilerplate stuff. So
observations with
like
real
a chemistry
conclusions.
experiment. You're repeating the same reaction over and over again and getting the same result.
Yeah, and that's good science. That's very different from trying to figure out what happened in the unseen past when you weren't there. When you do that,
and you just have a few clues
you
from
got some clues.
the bones, the fossils that you find in the dirt. Yeah.
And so when you do that, you're trying.
Can we repeatedly confirm that Napoleon was at Waterloo? I wasn't there. Was he there? Were you there? I don't think any of us were there. I think we can confirm.
God was there, Jackson.
Honestly,
God was there.
It honestly doesn't matter if we were there or not. Can we repeatedly confirm what John ate for breakfast this morning? Like, we can't go back in time and check. We can't all go check what you ate for breakfast. Even you, John, you have to, just remember. Although they would say that's eyewitness testimony. So yeah, they love that. They love eyewitness testimony. I think that's great.
Well, I mean, then you also have to, contend with, like, what about in a case, like a forensic case in which there's no camera footage, there's no, the one witness is dead. What do we do? Oh, I guess we just have to let him go. There's no eyewitness evidence, so all we have is this circumstantial DNA evidence. Who cares?
Clues you have, and you got to make assumptions about the past they lived in to try to figure out how they got there, when they got there, their age, their different features, and so forth and so on. That's a very different thing than what you think of normally as science.
Right, and we're going to see the same sort of assumption made in this clip, also from Jurassic Park 1. It's just called Jurassic Park. It's not called 1, but from the first film. But in this one, they're looking for T-Rex, but we haven't seen T-Rex yet. The big reveal is coming up, but here's another big assumption.
T-Rex doesn't want to be fed, he wants to hunt. Can't just suppress 65 million years of gut instinct.
Did the T-Rex live for 65 million years?
It did not, because even in the storyline, the T-Rex...
Come on. Do we not know what poetic license is?
No, they want to... Go ahead, John.
Well, I was just thinking from a very non-biological evolution and entertainment sort of point of view. I took that as meaning like there was an evolution up to the point of the T-Rex. And I'm not sure when the T-Rex like evolved into our environment, but the 65 million years seems to just be a reference to like, oh, dinosaurs evolved over millions and millions of years, and then, you know, T-Rex evolved to hunt and all of this other stuff. And this is the same kind of thing that we would talk about with like lions or other predators that are in the natural world now. Like as a kid and as an adult, that's how I took it. I didn't take it as some kind of scientific statement about T-Rex. I took it as a scientific statement about predators and how predators operate and how predators have been evolved to operate in a specific way. And that existed like prior to modern predators, and it existed back when, you know, dinosaurs were around. That's how I took it.
I'm going to give him this point though. I feel like the writers of the Jurassic Park script were sloppy there, because when you use 65 million years, that is famously a measure of the distance of time between us and them.
Right.
So to reuse that number to mean something else, I'll give them that as at least sloppy.
They could have been more clear with the writing.
Yeah, they could have been more clear with the
That's
writing.
true.
I'll give them that. And Brain Cramp, thank you, Brain Cramp, writes, science. They keep saying that word. I don't think it means what they think it means. Well, good point. They have their own, they like to keep their own definition of science because, you know, they need to, of course, undermine science everywhere, which leads to a lot of the problems that you have in young Earth creation communities, because they can't let you trust science for anything. They have to therefore adopt anti-climate change, anti-vaccine, like all these other things. They just have to be on that side, because if they ever give credence to what science is doing, it just causes problems. I don't think they wanted to be on anti-climate change, I don't think that's what they would prefer, but they just need to out of necessity.
I don't know. I'm not so sure about the anti-vax. Like Jonathan Sarfati does argue with people on Facebook, he argues against anti-vaxxers. I do know, I am definitely familiar with the anti-climate change stuff. But I mean, there is kind of that, to borrow a phrase from a different content creator, there's like that, what he calls the constellation of beliefs. Like you're on this side, you have to have all these beliefs together, and you can't have anything from this other side. But yeah.
But now, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, the anti-vax stuff may have also come because they were at the time primarily making their money off of ticket sales for live event attractions.
Okay.
So,
I'm not a big AIG watcher, so I'm like that. Jonathan Sarfati arguing with anti-vaxxers is like the most. That's what I've seen. That was like a couple years ago. I have no idea if they're now on board the, like, I don't know, arrest Fauci train or whatever crap.
Right.
If they are, then, you know, wow, big surprise, you know. So,
not hardcore. I mean, their other main thing, of course, I don't know if you guys know this, but they have a new CEO. It's not Ken Ham anymore.
Yeah, I heard about that.
It's Martin Isles, and his primary focus, they're taking the ministry into anti-abortion, anti-trans are their main new things.
Right. Well, sure, they got to be on the culture war stuff. I mean,
right,
because
exactly.
Nothing's more important than whatever current culture war talking point is. That's what's most important.
That's how you raise the bucks.
That's true. Anti-vax is, as far as conspiracies go, a fascinating one, in my opinion, because it switched political sides, essentially. Anti-vax was predominantly a left-wing ideology until the past, 10 years, and then it radically just switched to the other side, and that's kind of unusual. You don't typically see that with most conspiracies, but I don't know.
Was wiped out 65 million years ago, and then they were able to find some
to
dinosaur blood and everything. But they're pushing. It doesn't really make sense in the film, but they have to slip in the 65 million, which they do a lot.
Because that's the secular ideology about the origin of dinosaurs when they lived.
Right. But even the idea that T-Rex wants to hunt.
Don't know.
We don't know. In fact, there are many scientists who think he was a scavenger, or from
no,
a perspective.
No, not really. The scavenger thing is not really. not really supported in today's world. There's the Tyrannosaur Chronicles by David Hone. He goes way deep into the biology of Tyrannosauroidea as a group. And it's like, well, would T-Rex have scavenged if it came across food? Yeah, sure. Lions do the same thing. Like, will they do it? Yes. Is that their primary mode of acquiring food? No, it's not. So,
Vishanti writes, "Happy birthday to Kip Davis."
oh, happy birthday.
If Kip Davis is in the chat, happy birthday, Kip.
Originally,
That's right.
he would have eaten vegetation.
All sin and the curse changed everything.
Yep.
By the way, there's one thing that does resonate with me from that particular clip. When you go to the zoo and you want to see like the really cool animal, the rhino or the elephant or whatever, and you can never see them because they're hidden away. Like you're excited, oh, you see this great. They're hiding from you. In Jurassic Park, that's what's happening. They're trying to see all these cool dinosaurs, and they're not there, and it's always so upsetting.
It's true. That does happen.
But it sets up.
Hate when that happens.
Those darn handlers try to take the animals' happiness and welfare into account.
Yeah, like whenever you go to the zoo and it's like the cheetahs are in like they're like lean or whatever, they're back, you can't see them, and it's like, oh man, darn it, them being happy and well taken care of and everything.
Exactly.
God, how embarrassing.
There was a go ahead, G.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was just laughing into.
Gotcha. There's a great zoo at the city I used to live in. Calgary Zoo is great, but I remember at one point there was where I was there with my kids. We would go all the time, but there were people upset that the bats weren't awake. Right? They were just like, "Why can't they? Why are these bats? Well, every time I come, they're just sleeping." Yeah.
Okay. Funny story. Okay. Very brief funny story. I read way back years ago when the first time I read The Blind Watchmaker by Richard Dawkins, and he has the whole chapter where he talks about the evolution of bat echolocation. I did a video based on that chapter. Well, I went to the Memphis Zoo right after I read that, and they have a bat enclosure, and I watched 2 bats fly right into each other. This whole chapter. It's like, wow, bat echolocation is so sophisticated. It's a marvel of evolution. These bats just go, just run right into each other. I was like, works well enough, I guess.
Well enough.
For the big reveal of T-Rex in a little bit, yeah. So there are more assumptions being made in the first Jurassic Park film. In fact, very early on, they make a lot of assumptions about T-Rex and about Velociraptor in this one clip.
Try to imagine yourself in the Cretaceous period. You get your first look at this 6-foot turkey as you enter a clearing.
Tell a Velociraptor. 6-foot turkey.
And you keep still because you think that maybe his visual acuity is based on movement like T-Rex.
Assumption.
Yeah, again, a thing we don't know.
Not velocity.
It's a big part of the movie, too.
You stare at him, and he just stares right back. And that's when the attack comes, not from the front, but from the side. And the other 2 raptors, you didn't even know were there.
It's amazing. He knew all that from some bones.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's pause for a second. Okay, so I take issue with that. Oh, it's just some bones. Oh, we know a crap load about animal behavior from just some bones. Like, there's so much you can learn from that. We have, for one thing, I just want to point out that, like, the velociraptors are not actually velociraptors in this. They're based on Deinonychus, which is a larger, different species of dromaeosaur. But, like, were they pack hunters? Well, if they all died together, if you are consistently finding them in groups of, like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, whatever, it's like, it seems, I think we can reasonably infer that they lived in these groups, these familial groups. I don't think we can just be like, oh, it's impossible to say, were they solitary? Were they pack hunters? I don't know. That's baloney. One of the interesting things about, like, trilobites, for instance, is, like, lots of trilobites were attacked on, like, specifically the right side. Why? Well, that tells us something about the way that the predators of trilobites, like Anomalocaris, the way that they hunted, they had this, like, asymmetry in their hunting behavior because there's an unequal distribution of these attacks. And I'm sure you can find similar things in other species. Like, how do we know what species preyed on, this lemur, for instance? Well, we can find that their bones, for instance, have tooth marks in them from fossa. or the same is true of like Triceratops. You can find Triceratops bones that have tooth marks from Tyrannosaurs in them. There's an entire book I have on my shelf. It's what is it? It's like all about behavior, inferring behavior from fossils, just all that sort of stuff. Like mating patterns. Did these species build like bowers, or did they build little like mounds to lay their eggs in? Well, we know that Oviraptorosaurs, which were named the egg thief, but weren't actually stealing eggs, at least the eggs that they were associated with originally were their own. Whether or not they stole eggs is incidental. But like the mothers are preserved over their eggs. So like they were using their arms, which had feathers on them because dinosaurs had feathers.
No, liar.
To protect their eggs, and they were all sitting like they all died because a sand dune fell on a bunch of them and squished them all, or suffocated them. So like we can infer a lot about behavior, not probably to the extent that Dr. Grant is talking about in that clip, where like, oh yeah, we know they would have done like a pincer move, and come out from the sides. Like, oh okay, we don't know that, but we can infer a lot about behavior based on fossils.
Jason Rollins, $5, writes, GE doesn't like the movie Hackers because he knows he isn't elite.
No. It's not because it's not because of that. It's because the things that happens in Hackers is not what would happen in a real hacking situation. I'm not claiming to be a hacker. I'm just saying that the movie Hackers has a lot of Hollywood magic that goes into the whole hacking thing. Now, is there like some kind of truth to what happens in it? Yes, because like in hacking, social engineering is a very big thing. And there's this one particular segment in Hackers where there's a lot of social engineering that happens in order to mess with this federal agent. That is real hacking. What's not real hacking is when they like traverse a 3D space that's filled with pillars that allow them to access certain files and all this other shit. Like all of that fantastical stuff is not real hacking. What real hacking amounts to is like a lot of social engineering where you're just like basically pretending to be like in a position of authority, or you're pretending to be an important person, and then you're gaining information in order to access different portions of a system to where you can manipulate it. And so like that's what hacking actually is, not what Hackers presents itself as.
Well, now you brought up. Okay, go ahead, Jackson.
This is the book I was talking about. Can everybody see? Locked in Time, Animal Behavior Unearthed in 50 Extraordinary Fossils. So, entire book about fossil animal behavior. Go get it. It's a really cool book.
Actually, get this book.
Also get that book. Yeah.
Where's this? This book, The Rocks Were There. Jackson is a co-author on that one. But
I have that book. I have it. I haven't read the complete thing. But I have it.
It's the only book that's fatter than Gary Habermas's Resurrection book.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So, John, I'll tell you, it's not really meant to be read. Like, sit down, just flip through it. It's really more, and we should have probably marketed it more that way, as it's more like an encyclopedic resource. So you just go back to the index and you look up, okay, I need a thing on Stephen Meyer, or I need a thing on Ken Ham, or whatever, and then you can flip to the page where we talk about that. So that's really more hiking.
Oh yeah, I totally use it that way. It's not that I've just read directly through it, although that would be a great way if you wanted a crash course and like anything like anti-creationist kind of deal. But it's a great resource just to have on hand in case you come across a weird, crazy idea that you don't know how to respond to, and then you look in the index, and then you can get to like what the response should be.
A lot of it's not online. A lot of it's not online, frankly. Like, so I do use a book that way.
Yeah, we're working on the second volume. Yeah, we're getting there. It is like the first book is by itself already the most comprehensive creationism refuting book in existence, and so that the fact they're about to come with that we're working on a second one, so we'll have written or co-authored, RJ and I, both of the most comprehensive creationism refuting books in existence. So
I will put the link in the description. I forgot to do that before. I'll put in afterwards for people later. But GE, your comment about the movie Hackers reminded me of my least favorite part of Jurassic Park, and that is when the girl, the sister, she comes up to the computer and she goes, "This is a Unix system. I know this." And
like, Unix systems are command line driven.
They're not absolutely. Like 3D. That was the thing. That was the thing. It's like, that is clearly not a Unix system. It was a GUI built on top of, maybe at best, but even you could tell from the file system it was navigating that it wasn't like Unix compliant, and that was weirdly the thing that brought me out of the dinosaur movie.
I love how she like maneuvers the spotlight on it like through like the keyboard and everything, and I'm like, what the fuck is she doing?
Yeah. Like, they could have picked anything. They could have picked any name other than Unix, because that was the one system that like had no graphical user interface at the time. So yeah.
That's great.
All right, let's get back to these schmozos.
Really smart right now. And they are smart people. We're not saying they're not. But there's no way you can know those things. There's certain things. Yeah, you can have good guesses. You can even figure out certain things about how they see based on where the eye sockets are on the skull. So you can make certain assumptions.
The skull.
Yeah. Wait a second. You can make assumptions about behavior based on the morphology of the fossil? Holy moly. Wait a second. I just thought you said you couldn't do that. Oh, I'm confused now. Freaking
science
morons.
changed in the last 5 minutes, Jackson.
Science changes all the time, unlike the Bible, which is always unchanging, never added to or taken away. No, anyway,
that's a feature, not a bug, apparently.
But to know those details, there's no way you can know. But it's setting up what happens later in the film in both cases. But again, assumptions that this is the way that a lot of times science books teach evolution. They give you, here we found this fossil, therefore we know all these details, and they don't know all those details.
It's true. I indoctrinate all of my students. I tell them we actually knew what motorcycle the dinosaurs rode. We know what their favorite restaurant was. It's true. I tell my students that.
So many assumptions behind those.
And so we talked earlier about the difference between that observational science and like the historical, like paleontology, where you're trying. Think of it like forensics.
Yeah.
Like a crime scene. If you think of somebody coming in trying to figure out the crime scene, they have the murder weapon over there, and they have other little details. You're looking for fingerprints. You don't have all the picture.
You're trying to figure it out.
Right, and now that's something that happened just hours ago.
So you can't solve. Is the implication that you can't solve like murder cases? Is that the implication?
Well, or they're going to say that you can solve murder cases, which completely undermines their whole creed about repeatability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
A day or two ago, maybe. Now you're talking about something that happened in the distant past. From our point of view, thousands of years ago. From their view, 65 million years ago. And you're
either way.
It's a few zeros between friends.
And it's funny you mentioned that the whole idea of like a CSI movie, and the truth, that's what's happening with paleontology, trying to look at the scant evidence, interpret it, try to figure out how it got there. But within those CSI movies, think about how many times the whole premise of the movie is the guys come in, they're looking at the evidence, and they think it's all pointing in one particular direction.
It's this guy. We know who it is.
It must be that person. It's all pointing that way, and the evidence seems to really point that way. And then what happens?
They find more detail
at the end of the movie,
or an eyewitness account.
Yeah.
Wait. Are you saying that new information allows you to change your conclusion? That doesn't seem right.
Wait a second. Hold on. But wait, they don't always have eyewitness evidence. In fact, I'm pretty sure in a lot of cases they don't have any eyewitness evidence at all. They're like, we're pulling data like on where this guy lived, his purchases in like recent months, like DNA at wherever. But it's like, it's usually not eyewitness evidence or camera or whatever.
I have missed some super chats. Sorry, people. Balthazar 228, another super chat. Thank you. The wild typing of movie Hackers kills me. All right. I don't remember the typing being weird, but
oh well, maybe they mean the type font, like the type font of
Oh,
the
yeah.
title. I mean that was pretty cool. Like the stylistic aspects of Hackers was pretty cool, but like the technical aspects of it just made me cringe.
I also enjoyed that the implication in the film was that the more monitors you had, the more likely it was that you could get into someone else's system.
Right. Either that or the more amount of like bits as far as like color depth goes.
Right.
Like
Yeah, right.
makes the computer better.
Yeah. That was back when people actually cared about that. Yeah, that was when not everyone just had 8 million colors. Melly, $5 member chat. Everyone knows a dinosaur's favorite restaurant is Hooters since they love melons so much.
Oh. Oh.
Well done, Melly. Well done.
Eyewitness account.
I saw that with my own eyes.
Which is even better.
That's even better. A piece of evidence or new interpretation, and it totally changes their conclusions.
So why is the eyewitness account better, especially if it's a reliable eyewitness?
Well, especially if you think about the fact if it was an
Your Honor, we don't just have a witness for you. We've got a reliable eyewitness.
We have God.
I'm pretty sure my fiance right now is like watching this and like melting down because she like a lot of her background is in forensics, and she can tell you like eyewitness accounts are usually like, you know, one of the worst types of evidence actually. There are what was it? There was a case because this was like way back on my channel. I was looking at cases where eyewitness evidence turned out to be, or eyewitness testimony, sorry, turned out to be wrong. And one of them was like 3 separate eyewitnesses ID'd the suspect, and the DNA evidence like totally exonerated him. 3 eyewitnesses claimed to have seen this one dude, but the DNA evidence like overruled them because forensic researchers know, actually, no, eyewitness testimony is terrible. It's often so very bad. It's way better to have, you know, purchase history or DNA evidence or, you know, or whatever. Like these are way better methods. Oh God, it's all boilerplate crap.
Well, and that's where history becomes really, I guess, convoluted or at least difficult, because a lot of times the only thing that you have is anecdotal testimonies. And so like for instance with the eruption at Pompeii, before we actually found the archaeological evidence of Pompeii, where the volcano erupted and everything like that, all we had were you know, anecdotal testimonies about the eruption at Pompeii. So that's where history really kind of is a bit fuzzy. And a lot of people like to act like history is a bit more solid than it actually is, because history, you oftentimes only have textual anecdotal evidence to go off of. And so you have to employ things like the smell test and all this other stuff, which the smell test is just like, if it seems like it's unlikely, then it probably is, right? Like that's the lowest bar you could set for historical evidence as far as like what happened in the past. So like if you have an anecdotal account that says like, oh, the entire world flooded and killed everybody, but there was one particular family that fucked themselves into repopulating the entire population, like that wouldn't pass the smell test just on the face of it, right? But you have creationists who are like, you know what, fuck all of that. We have God who is telling us what actually happened, and we trust God, therefore that's what actually happened. And without actually acknowledging the fact that it's not actually God, it's just people that are saying that God says these things. And so that's
even if God was, even if we grant that God was involved, there was absolutely
Right.
people involved too, right? So yeah.
Are you guys familiar with the video of like the people passing a basketball? And
Yes.
the
The gorilla.
Yeah, the gorilla suit. Yeah, so like
Yep.
that's one of my favorite examples with regard to eyewitness testimony, because for anyone who's not aware, the point of this experiment was the researcher had a person watch, and they said, "Okay, I want you to count how many times the basketball gets passed back and forth between these two people." So okay, they watch and throw back and forth, and then at the end of the video, okay, the researcher comes out and says, "All right, did you see the gorilla?" The person's like, "What are you talking about?" Well, it turns out, as the people were passing the basketball back and forth, a gorilla, or a person in a gorilla suit, walks like right into the middle of the screen, like behind the people passing basketball, and like, beats his chest and then walks off. And so many people didn't see it.
Yeah, so Jackson, just so you know, I remember seeing that, and I was like, in the middle of it, I was like, "Why is there a fucking gorilla here?" And, and I lost count, and I couldn't think of like, I don't know how many times I passed it back and forth. I saw a fucking gorilla walk middle screen and then walk off like it was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently, we can't give you focus tasks. You're not good for those, John.
Yeah,
No,
I read about
easily
that.
Distracted by shit like like gorillas walking in the middle of the screen, waving at the camera, and then walking off. Yeah, I get distracted.
Yeah, to Kip, I read The Greatest Show on Earth by Dawkins. That was how I found out about that experiment. I didn't know about it beforehand.
Super chat from Chris. Paul, I don't know if you know this, but dinosaurs love coffee tables. Well, that's why they went extinct, my friend. Chris,
How can you argue with that, Paul? I mean, coffee tables, they love them. They use them all the time.
And where are they now? Birds.
I mean, that doesn't matter.
They had to turn into birds. Birds don't have coffee tables.
You don't know that.
I've never seen one. I built bird houses and they've never put a coffee table in there. Balthazar 228 being very generous tonight. I meant $10. I meant the trope of hackers typing at 160 words. Oh yeah, 160 words per minute while not being in the right window or having clear mouse movements during the hacking scenes. One of the most insane movie tropes. Yeah.
The hacking scenes. I love the movie tropes around hacking because, like, I don't know if y'all have seen. Go back and rewatch Mission Impossible. Right? There's a scene at the very end of the movie where Ving Rhames is on a train, right? And he literally types into his computer, "jam cell phone," and it jams the cell phone. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly how fucking hacking works.
He's got a macro. Come on. He's an expert. He's got a macro set up that just types a whole bunch. You can do that now. Yeah.
Event that took place that nobody else saw, but there is one reliable eyewitness, then you can know from that person what actually took place. You weren't there, nobody else was, but they were.
That person could be mistaken. No matter how reliable they are, they may have never told a lie in their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're mistaken,
they're not lying.
They're not lying.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely no difference between someone who's honestly mistaken and someone who's honestly, vertically saw a thing. Yes.
Paul, listen, okay, this is the most trusted person in all of history. Okay, how can you deny that they are being truthful, that they are the most trusted person in all of history? And that's God.
I got a fight on the line the other day with someone who's upset that I said, well, if my mom told me she saw aliens, I would probably not immediately believe that. And he got all upset with me. It's like,
really?
Okay, you're living your life. Okay, it's in such a way that you just accept everything you love that they tell you. And I'm thinking, I wouldn't think my mom was lying, but I would think she was mistaken.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, yeah, I mean, it's like John said, it's the smell test, right? Like, yeah, if someone says I saw Bigfoot or the Mothman or aliens, whatever, you're gonna be like, yeah, sure you did. It's time for your meds. It's 8 o'clock,
trust them.
Are you thinking about a certain event that maybe we could tell them about?
I'm thinking about the Bible, all right, and the biblical worldview and the biblical kind of creation.
I love that he's doing this with this particular shirt on.
Of course, I'm thinking about the Bible. Yes, we all know that you're thinking about the Bible like this entire time. Like,
Especially Song of Solomon, you know.
yeah.
Oh, the Bible. Right. I keep forgetting about that as I'm watching Answers TV.
Where God himself, the creator of the universe, is the eyewitness of what he did in creation. And he tells us what he did in his word in a very straightforward manner, which all the biblical authors and Jesus also echo throughout scripture as straightforward history. He tells us what he did so we can use that biblical history, that framework, to understand present day observations like things like fossils.
And he's the
Listen, Jesus is God. God cannot lie. Therefore, Jesus referenced Moses and Adam and all that, and therefore it's all true history. Okay? Like, I'm not even bullshitting about this kind of logic that is being used by these guys right now. Like, I've literally heard creationists use this kind of logic. Jesus is God. Therefore, whatever Jesus talks about, like, Jesus can't lie. And so, therefore, Adam, Moses, Noah, and all them, they're all real historical figures, and all of that really historically happened because God cannot lie.
Right. Here's where I fell very quickly from losing young Earth creationism to losing Christianity, was that I'm actually on team young Earth creationism when it comes to, I think that Jesus and Paul both assumed that those Genesis accounts were literal. Like, it seems clear to me that Jesus thought that Adam was a person, right? And that Noah's flood, worldwide flood, happened. And that was part of what really, I could have settled from young Earth creationism to theistic evolution or something. But yeah, in a way, I think they're right. I think that people who go the theistic evolution route, while I am excited because they accept science, I think that they're twisting their theology. That's just a Paul rant there. That's not, the panel doesn't need to endorse that view. But that's,
you got to compartmentalize, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, and so obviously people know that I don't, you know, for the sake of argument right now, I'll agree. If Jesus was a real person in history,
well, the Jesus you could say the Jesus depicted in the Bible, because that's what I would say. The Jesus depicted in the Bible thought Adam was a real thing.
Oh, definitely. I mean, he thought that Adam was a real thing. I mean, he was fully Jewish. So, I mean, he thought Adam was a real person. He thought Eve was a real person. He thought Noah, Moses, like all the patriarchs, Joshua, like all the patriarchs of the Old Testament, that person considered them to be real historical figures. But even if they considered them to be real historical figures, that doesn't make them actual historical figures.
Right.
Yeah.
Except they met on the Transfiguration Mountain, John. I don't know how you explain that.
Oh my God, Transfiguration Mountain. How could I totally disregard that?
Exactly.
Moses and Adam or whoever else appeared on the mountain. Obviously they really did, because Jesus said they did.
That was their Avengers Endgame right there.
That's right. Yeah, it was.
Can you imagine Jesus entering Jerusalem and it's like an Avengers Endgame thing, and he's like, on your left, and
yeah,
like Moses and Adam like coming in through like wizard portals.
Except I think it was more like the Spider-Man No Way Home. It was like where it was the three different Spider-Mans. You had, because you had Elijah and Moses and Jesus all there.
Okay.
Yeah, actually,
but I do like the sling
agree.
ring. The sling ring portals. I like that idea with the disciples. Yeah. There's a sling ring portal in the Deadpool trailer, and I'm very excited about that.
Me too.
Oh.
That means something to other movie nights, but yeah.
Ultimate reliable eyewitness.
He knows all things, he can't lie,
and he was
right?
there.
he's perfect, and he loves us beyond understanding.
Yes. So, well, let's take a look at Jurassic Park 2, a little clip from there, because one of the characters in this is actually going to talk about these assumptions.
In a positive way.
Explaining that they are making assumptions about certain things, which is rare for people to acknowledge that.
That's right.
And it's not really the focus of the scene very much, but you hear her talking about it. And man, it's got some beautiful scenery there, and one of my favorite places in the world in the Redwoods. So let's take a look.
I mean, you can give me the poster right now, today, please. Competition's over. Close the entries.
I totally forgot he was in Jurassic Park too until I watched it the other day.
I also forgot. I just realized that. I was like, holy crap.
We went straight from this to Wedding Crashers.
Yeah.
Actually,
I mean, honestly, the amount of like cameos in the previous Jurassic Park films is pretty amazing, because you got Vince Vaughn there, but also you have a guy that is pretty well known. I can't remember his name right now, but he's in West Wing. He's in more recently The Good Doctor, and then of course you've got the female researcher and all this is
Moore.
Julianne Moore, and then you've got of course Ian Malcolm, Jeff Goldblum. Like I mean, it's just a star-studded cast. Like all of them are awesome.
Yeah. I watched a really good movie. It was a couple of years ago that had Vince Vaughn in it, and it was called Freaky. It's the premise is like a Freaky Friday, but it's horror because it's A24, if I remember correctly. And he's a serial killer, and there's like a teenage girl, and of course they switch essences, and so the teenage girl is in Vince Vaughn's body, and the serial killer is in the teenage girl's body. It's a hilarious movie. I love it.
Did you guys see on the Jurassic, while we're on these tangents, but the next Jurassic World trilogy is going to be led by Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big casting. Good get there for them.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I love her husband on Saturday Night Live. Like
Colin Jost.
He's awesome on Saturday Night Live. Like I love him, but she makes these random appearances on Saturday Night Live, and they're just awesome because they're perfect. Most recently, she played Katie Britt, and that's what's coming to mind because Katie Britt is my senator, right? Like I'm totally embarrassed by the fact that she's my senator because she put out like promotional material that basically amounts to like shitting on solar energy. Like, well, we can't get solar energy for our farming equipment, therefore it's bad, is basically what it amounted to. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about, Katie? You need to shut the fuck up, is how I felt about it. But I mean, I'm just a low-level hacker from North Alabama.
You're not elite, John. We don't have to listen to anything you say.
Exactly.
Pick up sensor miles away. We're gonna observe and document, not interact.
Which, by the way, is a scientific possibility. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Whatever you study, you also change.
Well, I'll risk it. It's like scratching around in Rocket's bone and making deductions about the nurturing habits of animals that have been dead for 65 million years. I'm sick of it, man. You show up and fill my head with stories for 4 years, so of course I'm going to come down here. What do you...
It's a very candid admission, and it's true.
Yeah, she's just making assumptions and
I don't think I could watch a whole movie that way now that I've seen a longer clip.
Well, so like, here's the big thing for me about all of this is like they're having this very candid discussion about, observing animals and all this other kind of stuff. And, how, and prior to this, mind you, in the movie, like they just encountered stegosauruses that attacked and almost killed them to protect the baby that's in the I guess group. Like they're not even addressing the fact that even the herbivores were fucking dangerous to humans, but yet they're predicated, like this entire review that they're doing is predicated upon this idea that humans were able to tame even stegosauruses. Mind you, Paul, I don't know if you remember, but in Ken Ham's book, he has like people in Asia taming stegosauruses and putting like little metal things on them that blunted the like stegosaurus spikes and everything like that, and they rode them like fucking horses. And they're not even addressing the fact that, like, oh yeah, these animals are dangerous as fuck, and they're just sitting there like, oh yeah, and they're like agreeing with her about the Heisenberg principle and all this other shit, when they're not even addressing the giant fucking violent elephant in the room.
Do you know what the tail spikes of the stegosaur are called?
I do not.
No, I don't.
They're called the Thagomizer, a name which was derived from a Far Side comic, because last week they killed Thag. So
I remember hearing that. That's awesome. I used to love the Far Side. Yeah, that's awesome. Also, why would those be needed if all they were eating were plants? That seems weird.
And everything was like peaceful, because like, keep in mind, AIG puts out this whole idea that prior to the fall of man, right, the dinosaurs were peaceful. They all lived in the Garden of Eden, and everybody was, you know, nice to each other. Like, everything was fine. It wasn't until a woman ate a fruit salad that, like, the dinosaurs were like, oh, well, now I'm pissed, and now I'm gonna fuck everybody up. Like, it wasn't. It's like, oh, is Eve eating a fruit salad? Well, that pisses me off.
We have a super chat. LHRPG official. Hey, Paul, big fan. What are your thoughts on Neil deGrasse Tyson trying to distance himself from the atheist community? I haven't seen him do anything recently on that. Have you guys? I mean, I have seen him say that he doesn't like to refer to himself that way publicly.
That's all I've heard. He always preferred the term agnostic, but I never heard like distancing himself.
Yeah, so I take Neil deGrasse Tyson and other science communicators as wanting to really address the scientific portion of the community. Like, they're really trying to reach people on a more scientific level rather than arguing over religion, because a lot of people really kind of tie themselves off to their religion. So if you can really appeal to the more scientific nature of people, I feel like you can more easily reach them, not to convert them away from their religion, but to, I guess, push them towards the more of a scientific, like, realism sort of side, like, to where they're not rejecting science outright for their magical wizard, but they're embracing science rather. And so that's what I see Neil deGrasse Tyson doing. He knows the audience that he's speaking to, which is a amalgam of both religious and non-religious people. And so distancing himself from the non-religious portion of the conversation, I feel like only helps him to reach the religious portion, which is currently convinced by creationism. And I think that's really what he's wanting to do. He's really wanting to convince people away from creationism. And even if you still believe in God, you are at least accepting of a scientific perspective of reality. And I think that's a really helpful thing. I think that what Neil deGrasse Tyson is doing is very good and can ultimately result in something positive.
Yeah, it's casting the widest net. Yeah, I agree. I think I'm the only person up here who doesn't do like atheism on my channel. I just do zoology. I mean, I am an atheist. I have no problem saying it, but yeah, I want my stuff, to just reach people as, just as the science material, not as like I'm out here, trying to get you to be an atheist or whatever. So yeah.
Right, because and I remember you saying this one time there, Jackson, is that atheism, like, you don't have to be an atheist in order to accept science.
Yeah.
Like, you can be a theist and accept science at the same time. and scientific realities, because science isn't geared towards disproving something that apparently exists outside of reality, because science is only really geared towards describing our reality. And I mean, while I feel that science can definitely show that, well, even if there is a God that exists, we haven't been able to detect him, and that's the reason why I don't believe. That's not saying, oh, God doesn't exist. And I feel like people that go out there and go out of their way to, engage in conversations with people that are religiously minded, but you're just trying to get them to accept the science as it exists, or at least accept the science as it has been proven to be correct. I feel like that can only help move our societies, like whether it's Canadian or Alabama, Louisiana,
or the rest of us.
Yeah, I feel like that can only benefit society.
Yeah.
I will say though that we had Carl Sagan who did both. And
or Dawkins.
Or Dawkins, although he's not casting a very wide net anymore.
No, his net's getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah. I do think I would be more concerned if we weren't also pairing it, though. There are other people out there who are normalizing atheism, and I think that's also super important. I think the most important place that will be able to happen is American politicians. The more American politicians who are eventually feel good enough to be able to say, even just say, I'm not blatantly Christian, like, right? Like, so both are needed but no one's responsible for taking up all those mantles. I can't be angry that someone's not taking up my pet cause. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, I keep that in mind with like my content, because like I'm very much geared towards, an atheist or secular leaning community. Whereas like Paulogia and Jackson over here, they are more readily accepted by both audiences, like both religiously minded audiences and the scientifically minded audiences. Now, I'm not claiming to be any kind of like scientific person. I mean, I am an engineer, but I guess that's more of applied sciences. But I feel like you guys do a lot more to bring religiously minded people in that maybe are convinced by creationism, or maybe are seriously considering creationism. You guys are bringing them into more of a scientifically minded I guess mindset. And whereas I'm just focused on people that are already atheists, and we're just sort of having a good time thinking about how ridiculous some claims are.
Well,
so I mean,
and all that is needed.
Yeah.
It
takes all types. Yeah.
I needed Ricky Gervais and George Carlin to ultimately to get where I was, right? Like, so yeah.
I will say, I've had like I've done one video with Inspiring Philosophy, and this was like several years ago. But like, because he's like, yeah, evolution is true. Abiogenesis happened in the past. We need to accept these things and move on. It doesn't do us any good to. Or he's like, you're saying to Christians, like, it doesn't do us any good to argue against these things, right? We need to accept that these are true. So yeah.
All right, let's watch a little more.
Okay.
About the nurturing habits of animals that have been dead for 65 million years. She's sick of that.
Right.
Well, because that's what they are doing.
Yeah.
And you can learn a lot of things, and we're not saying that they're not doing some really good observation and good research.
Right.
But because they often have a...
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, he's like, can you? I thought we couldn't learn anything. It's just fossils.
That's right, yeah.
It keeps kind of going back like, maybe we can learn some things.
Worldview that is approaching from these things were millions of years old. Therefore, everything gets shoehorned into that worldview, and so they interpret everything in that way.
I'll make it fit.
And we're also not saying as Christians that we don't make assumptions.
The pot calling the kettle black, if I've ever heard it, trying to shoehorn. My favorite argument is index fossils, because there are to date 0 creationist arguments that deal with index fossils. None. biostratigraphy and chronostratigraphy in general, like including magnetostratigraphy. Creationists have no response to these. They just kind of say, well, that's cool. Weird. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, moving on. The flood.
Well, but don't they still throw at you the old index fossils are circular because you're using the fossil to date the layer and the layer to date the fossil?
I don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to know anything about the age of the index fossil to know that they are in a particular stratigraphic sequence, right? I don't have to. It could be 10,000 years old or it could be 10 million years old. It doesn't matter to me. The only thing that does matter is the fact that this fossil is always 100% time above this other fossil, bar 0 examples. And that's all I need to make the argument, because then they go into, well, maybe it was hydrologic sorting or maybe it was environmental sorting. Nope, couldn't have been hydrologic because they're the same size, same density, so that doesn't work. Oh, maybe it's environmental. Nope, doesn't work. They live in the same environment, so why are they stacked?
So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm going to try butcher index fossil. You can tell me where I'm wrong. So an index fossil is one, they call it that because it's found. So far, there have been no observations of that particular animal or that species outside of a certain geographic column. Layer, I guess is the right word. So I know I butchered that. So
it's fine.
That's roughly. So what's an example?
So like Pachydiskis nubergicus is the ammonite that marks the last epoch of the Cretaceous, the Maastrichtian. So it's like, what is it, like 68 to or 70 to 65 million years ago, whatever it is. It's that very last epoch, the last like couple million years of the Cretaceous. And you find Pachydiskis nubergicus, this one ammonite, in only that layer, only those handful of millions of years. Or I guess you might say, if you're saying, well, okay, it's not actually millions of years, that one layer, that one stratum.
Right. And the idea is that if the flood had happened, that there'd be a more even distribution, right?
Right. We should expect other ammonites also, like, overlapping in time with this. But if you look at the layer below it, the Turonian, I think, you don't have that. That's not the next. That's not. There's like no Pachydiskis nubergicus in the layer right below it, and there are none in the layer right above it. Well, okay, so why is it just this one? And the easy answer is, well, that's when they lived. They evolved, from this other species. They lived for a couple million years. They died out. That's the easy answer. The shoehorn answer is like, trying to say, well, maybe it was hydrologic sorting, or maybe it was environmental sorting, or, and then when you knock down these other arguments, it's then they have to appeal like, okay, well, maybe we have to do future research on it.
Right.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck with that research.
Every single deer managed to make it up the mountain. Not a single one got trapped.
Paul, do you know what the source was for that quote that was like, it's hard to imagine like magnolias running uphill or something?
Oh, no, I don't.
Was it Talk Oranges? I can't remember. Anyway, but someone said that a long time ago. I thought it was very funny.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, what's sad is that the retort to all this, or the response to all this, is basically, well, God's magic and he can do anything, and therefore that explains it all. And like, I'm not saying that this is good. This is like a good response, but like that's the canned response you're going to get from creationists if you bring all of this up to them. Like, why does this ammonite only appear in these particular layers in the geologic column? Oh, well, fucking magic is the reason why. Obviously, if God can create everything, then God can only have them appear in certain layers.
Isn't that a better answer? Isn't that a better answer? Then, like, isn't it better answer to say, you know what, God put all the animals to sleep for a year, than to say, but then to say, or God changed the diet of pandas so that for that year, right? Oh, like isn't that a better answer if you're holding on to this than to try and come up with no? They totally brought loads of bamboo and they had them like down like they should go to magic more. Since they're going to miracles anyway.
I mean, if you
Yeah.
think about it, magic is a magical explanation. So, like,
Right.
you don't need logic, you don't need reason or anything like that. So,
Well-
like, magic is a perfect like explanation for things because you don't have to explain magic.
Well, yes, but that is the problem in and of itself, right? Is when you back them
Well,
into the
obviously.
corner of it's like because they want to say no, we have a a secular, a naturalistic explanation for how fossils could have settled in a particular way, and they want that because they want to appeal to the flood and say, look, we're doing science, but they can't. They have to come with these like exotic explanations to try to to explain why this ammonite is in this layer but not another, or why the decay chain of atoms is the way that it is, or isotopes is the way that it is, and they back themselves into this corner, and it's their own fault for it. I mean, they could just be right. They could just give up young earth creationism, but they won't. So
All right, so we have not covered very much of this video. So if we're gonna do it, we're not gonna make it, I don't think. But let's see what we got.
We start with the assumption that God's word is true. It's the foundation for knowledge in all things, including history. We build our thinking from there. We acknowledge that, and we say it's a trustworthy source. It's confirmed again and again. But the point we often push as a ministry is that we have assumptions. That's true, but so does everybody. Yeah. The secular scientists, the naturalists, they're assuming natural processes. They're assuming the idea of secular humanism to one degree or another. They're assuming things.
I
we all
didn't have to. I didn't have to make those assumptions to make the index fossil argument. All I had to do was appeal to how water works, because water, last I checked, does not sort organisms by species, and I think that's a testable and repeatable observation I can make. So, like, I don't have to appeal to anything, just water.
So, Jackson, where you're getting wrong here, right? Where you're going wrong here is that you're not accounting for the fact that, like, God works in mysterious ways. Okay, like, I mean, sure, you can appeal to uniformitarianism, this whole idea that things work the same now as they did in the past and as they will in the future, like the basic idea of uniformitarianism. But the whole premise of creationism is that God can just, on a whim, for whatever reason, change how shit works. For whatever reason, in the very beginning, it was because a woman ate a fruit salad. Who's to say that God couldn't have gotten a twig up his ass and decided to change things differently, for the flood? And so, like, that's the power of the magical explanation, is that you can just make up whatever you want to and without explanation. And that's what, sorry, I hit my shaker thing. That's just whatever the explanation is, and you don't have to think about any kind of logical actual explanation for what you're saying. It's just magic, and that's it, and you don't have to explain it.
Especially about the unseen past, because everybody's got a worldview.
Right. Yep. So let's take a look at another clip from the first film, and this one it kind of gives you the storyline. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but because there's an animation that goes in. How are they remaking these dinosaurs? How do they bring it back to life?
Brings back memories for me watching the movie back in the day. Yeah,
back in the day, back when you were a kid. And I know where I was. Do you remember where you were when this came out?
What's the year again? 1990.
93.
93.
Actually, I'm going to save my story for a little bit.
Okay, well,
we're going to see the clip. Yeah.
It was my birthday party when I went to see it because it came out on my birthday.
Oh wow. Nice. I mean, I don't know. I remember going and seeing it. Like, I saw it, and then, like, when Lost World came out, I was like, I'm gonna read the book before I see the movie. I only got about maybe half of the way through the book before I actually.
Well, Lost World the book and Lost World the movie are very unrelated. So
yes,
they are. They are very.
I think I like the first movie more than the first book, but the second book more than the second movie.
I agree.
This is my hot
totally
take.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read the first book after I saw the movie, and I mean, I don't know. I like the first book way more than the first movie.
Fascinating.
My birthday's on Memorial Day, so I always had good movies. That's so all the Star Wars movies came out on my birthday up until number 3, number 6.
Okay.
Anyway, I was fortunate that way, so I was just a nerd that was my birthday party. I always went to movies.
Nice.
Save the clip.
That's gonna be fun.
We'll see that. All right, so let's take a look at this scene from how they bring it back to life. So.
What? My instructions never recreate an intact DNA strand. Not without master sequence counts.
DNA from what source? Where do you get 100-million-year-old dinosaur blood?
Where do you get 100-million-year-old dinosaur blood? So what they're going to do is explain in the video. There was some animation, which looks a little dated now, but you know, it's cool at the time.
1993.
DNA.
That is dated.
Yes. So that they were able to get dinosaur DNA from mosquitoes that had bitten dinosaurs and then were fossilized in amber, so the blood was still there and kept intact, and they were able to get the DNA, which is a pretty cool idea by Michael Crichton, you know, the author of the book.
Yeah, it's clever.
I wish I would have thought of that for a book series. Yeah, that would have been pretty cool. But where would you possibly get 100-million-year-old dinosaur DNA, dinosaur blood?
Well, it's so interesting. After this movie, we have found in so many cases all over the world.
Oh no!
We're finding soft tissue from dinosaurs.
How can that be? We were told that you'd never find any of that stuff because they lived millions of years ago, and that stuff can't last for more than 10,000 years.
Right, and yet we find it literally everywhere.
That's not true. That's literally not true. There's a creationist.
Wait, Jackson, are you telling me that the giant dinosaur foot that gets circulated on Facebook is not actually a dinosaur foot?
The what?
Have you seen the picture?
Run
Do you know
that
what I'm
by
talking
me one
about,
more
Paul?
time?
Yeah, no. There's a, I think it's is it Genesis Apologetics that has created a cross section of a dinosaur leg. Is it the same one?
No. I'm talking about like there's a picture that circulates around with creationists that it looks like a reptile sort of foot, but they claim that it's a dinosaur foot. And I don't know.
Hold on. You said it was Genesis.
It may not be. I think John and I are talking about a different one.
You said it was on Facebook. Dinosaur leg.
I'm trying to find the image that I remember.
Preserved dinosaur leg complete with skin. This?
Yes, I think so.
Preserved. When was this? Oh, Tanis. Oh, I know about this. Okay, that's not okay. First of all, that's not the original skin. It's mummified, but I was aware of that.
Is it this one?
Right.
Yeah, from I think it's an Edmontosaur. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's that second row, first image.
Yeah, so that's a mummified. It's not the original skin. It is mummified though.
Right. So yeah, second row, second image. I think is on what Paul has.
That's like
the claw of Trudon. It says there.
No, that's like
actually
a Moa, isn't it?
It's literally a Snopes article.
Yeah,
it's that one that I mean, at least I've seen like on Facebook and other areas where creationists are trying to be like, see, look, there's been dinosaur skin found and skin can't last 65 million years. Therefore,
you know, John, to their credit, that is a dinosaur foot. So that is indeed a dinosaur foot. What I was going to say is I've been arguing with this creationist on Twitter. I finally blocked him because he's an idiot. But he kept sending me this paper about Moa. So these researchers took DNA from several different Moa fossil sites, and they compared the rate of degradation of the DNA in the different aged fossils. And so what they were trying to do is figure out like what is the actual rate of decay for DNA in fossils at certain temperatures. And so this creationist was like, aha, here this paper says that DNA can only last 10,000 years. It proves it. Okay, so I look at this paper, I read it, and I'm like, Table 1 says that DNA can last over 1 million years if frozen. Now, to no one's surprise, actually, the paper itself, the introduction of the paper actually references DNA that is 80,000 years old that was found in ice. And then the author, I think the lead author on that paper was Alan Toft was his last name. He went on to do a paper several years later, which was that Greenland paper I mentioned earlier, where the DNA is 2 million years old because it was found in permafrost, which is perpetually frozen. And they actually use the math from the paper from that MOA paper to say, so we expect that the DNA should have degraded by this much based on the calculations we did previously. So it's like, clearly, they are not saying that DNA can only last 10,000 years. And when I brought this up to the guy, and I was like, did you read this paper? Because table 1 says this. He said, I don't believe that they found DNA older than 10,000 years. I was like, then why the frick did you give me this paper?
Well, yeah. The artifice. It's the artifice of scientists.
Right. So anyway, sorry.
No, that's all good. That's what we're here for. We're not here for answers to Genesis people.
Literally pliable, stretchy tissue still inside.
That's not what it is, though. It's
no, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what they're talking about. Is like this, like they perceive like this foot that has been found, and maybe there's other things that they're.
Well, no, but they like the Mary Schweitzer stretchy stuff, right? Where they dissolved it in acid.
It was like
for weeks.
Micrometers in length.
Yeah.
It wasn't tissue. It was collagen. It's not a tissue.
Right.
It's a protein.
Right.
But on camera, on 60 Minutes, they stretched it a little bit. I mean, that's always the clip they use, right? So.
Because it's stretchy. Because once you put it in whatever that acid was that they used, they demineralized it. It's going to be stretchy.
Yeah.
They're so stupid.
You know what? I've been doing this for years, and I have not thought about the fact that that was actually under a microscope. So the amount of stretch we're even talking about
is literally
micrometers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that.
Back, right?
And blood vessels.
Blood vessels, red blood cells.
Red blood cells, yep.
Right?
No,
in
no
T-Rex
blood
femur.
cells.
That was the first one. That was the groundbreaking.
And we're finding it literally everywhere, right?
No,
Around
we're
the world.
literally not.
No, I believe Schweitzer found shadows or remnants of what she basically hypothesized as being blood cell like, right?
Well, she found
round.
She found round remnants of iron.
Yeah, it was the heme, which is the molecule that actually does the oxygen transporting in our red blood cells. Yes, they found the heme because heme is a freaking it's an iron. Iron is a metal. Yeah. Why would the metal break down? Oh my god!
But it was still round, John.
Right, and they always represent it as like, they found a whole ass blood cells that couldn't have lasted 65 million years. Like they always represented it as something that just could not exist if deep time wasn't a thing.
I do want to shill Fazal Rana's book, Dinosaur Blood in the Age of the Earth, because Fazal Rana.
Oh, I have that somewhere.
While he is an old Earth creationist, he wrote this really, really good book on different preservation mechanisms for the biomolecules, because there are a few different ways that you can preserve them. So one of the reasons is it's like if it forms a sheet where electrons can move very easily back and forth among the different molecules. That's one way that creates like a really strong bond among all the different molecules that are involved. Another way is if they form crosslinks. So collagen forms lots of crosslinks between the different strands, and that also strengthens the bond among all of them. Oh, did you find it?
No, I didn't find it.
Mine's on my shelf over there. I already got one book.
Yeah, we got Jackson's book. That's the important one.
But yeah, so like there's a bunch of different ways.
Yeah,
there's a bunch of different methods.
And also keep in mind, like you and I both disagree with Buzzron on lots of things, but
he's very right on this point. Yeah.
It's a great confirmation those things just aren't that old. Now, we should say, though, that unfortunately, in some ways, what happens in the movie is impossible. We cannot clone a dinosaur from the DNA we get from those remnants.
Because if we could, I would be pulling up my Visa card and I would be, wherever it is, I'm going.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yep.
Can I get my spicy take? Can I get my spicy take? I think de-extinction's a bad idea. There's my spicy take.
Okay, that's the extent of it?
Okay,
tell us why.
There's no point. The things that there might be a point for things. Okay, if it's like a keystone species that went extinct recently and the ecosystem is collapsing because it's gone. Like, okay, all right, fine. I could maybe see that in that instance, but then you're bringing back like starfish, stuff like that. So who's gonna pay money for that? No, in terms of like non-avian dinosaurs, there's no point. Come on. For one thing, it's not going to be a non-avian dinosaur. It's going to be, even if we could, like it would be an amalgamation, right? The same is true of like mammoths. If you like artificially select like Asian elephants to be hairier and have longer tusks, it's not going to be a mammoth. That's going to be an Asian elephant with long hair and tusks. Like, I think the money would be wasted on that when it could be spent like doing more paleontological research or paleogenomic research or something like that. Like, they're gone, and that sucks.
Right.
But we can study them. We can, if we turn those funds for paleontologists to actually go and study these things. That's cool. That's really neat. It's more useful.
They actually had this very speech in the first Jurassic Park movie between John and Ian, where they were like, if I was bringing back the dodos, you wouldn't have a problem with that. And he's like, we're not talking about deforestation here.
Yeah,
we're talking about things. They had their chance.
But dodos.
Right.
I mean, even still, like, I don't see a point for bringing them back either. Like, I mean, I don't necessarily let the mammoth meatballs.
That's Jackson's hot take. So I don't want coffee tables in my house, and Jackson's against dodo birds. So that's where we're at.
Well, so I'm against de-extinction too, but I mean that's primarily because like they went extinct for a reason, like as long as it's, I guess, natural, if you will. And so like throwing a new species in, or well, I guess new to the environment at least, I think can destabilize it and cause a lot of problems. I mean, we see this in a lot of different areas, like in Florida with I believe it's pythons. They're an invasive species, and then you've got several other different species that are considered invasive species. And I think that it can be like it can have detrimental effects.
I just want to show you guys. Screw the dodo. We should be protecting the little dodo that currently exists. Hold on. Windows. Where is it? Why is it not opening? Window. Okay, I guess I'll just do that one. That one. Can everyone see the little dodo? The dunculus? Can you guys see it? Okay. This guy is called like the little dodo, the tooth-billed pigeon. This is an actual living relative of the dodo. We should be preserving them because I'm pretty sure they're like critically endangered. Yeah, look at that. These guys. Let's preserve them. Yeah. Or the Nicobar pigeon. That's another relative of the dodo. The Nicobar pigeon. Look at these guys. Look at that. It's gorgeous. Preserve those. We don't need to bring back the dodo. Let's keep the ones we have around. Okay. There you go.
According to my dog, one of those is outside my window right now. My pup's going bananas, so I was muted there. All right, let's get back to these guys. Oh, where are they? I had to gather them back on stage.
I want a better Jeep and a better cage for the Raptors, but other than that, yeah.
I want one of those gyro things from the second one, from the Jurassic
That is pretty
Park.
cool.
Yeah. Oh, those were pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool. I don't know if I'd fit in it, but all right. Well, let's take another look at another clip. And this one, Jeff Goldblum's character is the one that makes a lot of these statements, and where he's not in agreement with what the park is doing. He thinks it's dangerous. Of course, it turns out to be right. It's dangerous, but he is approaching things really from, it seems like, a naturalistic point of view. He's a chaos theory person, and that's his character. And he's going to make this
because we don't have chaos theory in Christianity. Because God solves the chaos in our lives. So
there is no chaos with God around, okay?
Correct.
That's just blasphemous to say that there's chaos.
Right, exactly.
How they were able to pull
It's an iconic phrase, too, from the movie at this point.
We simply deny them that.
Deny them that?
John, the kind of control you're attempting is, it's not possible. Listen, if there's one thing the history of evolution has taught us, it's that life will not be contained. Life breaks free, it expands to new territories, and it crashes through barriers painfully, maybe even dangerously, but, oh, there it is. There it is. You're implying that a group composed entirely of female animals will breed? No, I'm simply saying that life, finds a way.
And you know what? Those dinosaurs were trans.
They were. And I'm sure that would piss them off.
Look at that. That's trans representation back in the early 90s. Paul, you're muted.
My dog's still going nuts. That wouldn't surprise me if that comes up.
It was the transgender or the transgender.
That's right.
Back in the day.
If it weren't for the trans people, the dinosaurs wouldn't have killed anybody. But, yeah.
So true.
Yeah, we're beyond bathrooms now. We're on
This is just how it starts. First they trans.
That's right. Slippery slope.
And yet, are we told, like from an evolutionary perspective, it's really, and even in our day, like with people who are more like environmental activists, that life doesn't really find a way, that everything's being wiped out. The history of life
wrong. That's simply not true. You want a proof against that? Look at the distribution of the brown rat. Look at Rattus norvegicus. Their distribution is like everywhere except the poles, right? Like they have thrived.
Alberta.
Yeah, they have thrived literally everywhere we've taken them. So life does find a way. The issue is the things that find a way are hardy species, right? So like the lionfish in the Atlantic Ocean, or Salvinia, which is a fern from Brazil that's been transported all over the world, or dogs or cats or feral pigs, right? Brown rats. These things do survive all over the place. They're invasive. But lots of species are not. Lots of species are not only not invasive, they have very, very, very tight parameters that they can only live under, which again is kind of an argument against like having to round a bunch of them up, because a lot of organisms are dependent on other organisms. So like there are certain species of moth that will only or that live in like the burrows of gopher tortoises, for instance. Like you're telling me that like you guys had to grab the tortoise, but then also the moth that it had this relationship with it, and there's all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, it would have been impossible to maintain these relationships on the ARK.
So we are past the 2-hour park. So I just want to Mark is the word I'm looking for. Jurassic Park. I was getting confused. You guys still good to go for a little while, or should we wrap it up? Either one's fine.
I'm good.
Good for a little longer. All right, a little more.
Earth is more about extinction than it is about life finding a way. And yet in this, from an evolutionary perspective, this is where the character is coming from. Life is going to break through these barriers. It's going to push on. And
so life breaks through walls like the Kool-Aid Man?
Like the Kool-Aid Man, pretty much.
Oh yeah! If this were on Dapper's show, I think that'd be a drink for a joke that didn't land.
Well, I'm assuming what's happening is that these guys are just recording in a studio, and there's an editor somewhere like a week later who's looking for clips to put in. So it would have landed even worse. Right? That's all I'm saying is in this room where they are. I'm assuming there's now like somewhere in the basement, although Answers in Genesis has bought a whole giant building now. But I'm assuming for now they're filming this in the basement of the museum somewhere. They wheel in a popcorn machine when they're filming this one, and they wheel in a science cart when they're doing the science show. And, that's just an assumption.
Brings back memories from my childhood too. All right. Yeah, and so the idea, it really, if life does find a way every time, then why care about extinction? Won't be an issue. And also in the secular evolutionary worldview, if evolution were true, then the main theme is survival of the fittest. Why care if other things die?
And if we're at the top of the food chain,
wouldn't matter.
Who cares?
Right? And again, you can push to see.
That's actually the creationist.
Yeah, that's literally the God gave us dominion over the earth so we can do whatever the frick we want with it. Who cares if global warming is going to raise the levels of the oceans? Like, yeah, that's what they believe. Then because he just said something about like the crazy environmentalists like a minute ago, and now he's like, oh, why would we care? Like, what? Do you have any coherence to your position at all, or is it all just like off the dome? Just whatever thought is in there.
Even further, if evolution were true and there is no God, there is no absolute standard for morality. Why should you care about anything, including animals or extinction of anybody or anything?
Now, from a biblical,
the only commandment that is about animals is about not boiling a goat in its mother's milk. All the other commandments don't affect animals. So I don't know.
I typically see your posts on Twitter, Paul, and like you'll post things. Hey, the same from me. But like you tend to post things like like something impacting us is like sufficient reason for us to be concerned about it, right? You can say it's one thing to say, oh, why should you care about like the morality of society if God isn't real? Well, that impacts me. I care about surviving. I don't want to get stabbed and robbed. I'd hate to be pillaged. Like I want to live in an area where I don't think someone's gonna sneak in the night and murder me and steal all my stuff, right? Like isn't that reason to like have or to want a particular set of like moral codes or whatever in society?
Very simple empathy is the answer for almost all of that stuff.
Yeah,
but also I have Wampa 77 has completely corrected me here. There's the do not cover your neighbor's ass in the donkey sense, although probably in the other sense as well. They don't want you to. No coveting. Also, Wampas didn't exist till 1980, so Wampa 77 doesn't make sense. That's all right.
Perspective, should we care about the endangered species?
We have the best reason to care. God tells us to care, to be stewards of this world, to care for the world, to care for animals, to make this world flourish.
I don't think it says any of that. Does it say any of that, Paul? Does it depend on your interpretation of it?
Vaguely, no. You're like there's some vague stewardship.
Okay.
Passages that you can point to, but that's not God's priority. It's clear,
right.
Like it's not. Yeah.
Okay. I guess it's like it depends on how you interpret on your assumptions about the text. Right.
Right.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah, and I think one thing to point out, a lot of times people, I think, misunderstand what we're saying here. That they think that we're saying every Christian is perfect at this and every non-Christian is terrible at this. That's not what we're saying.
No, not at all.
We're talking about what is consistent with our worldview. Christians should be caring about the environment, not to the point where we don't care about people anymore,
right?
But we should be caring about our environment. We should be good stewards of it. And we're not saying that every evolutionist is terrible. They all have a live and let die mentality, and that they only care about themselves. We're not
don't know literally any, but don't know a single one.
Live and let die? Like I've never heard of that.
Well, it's a James Bond movie.
I mean, I've heard of that, but I'm just saying, like, as like I guess a philosophy.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
I've never.
I mean, because that's how they're mentioning it, right? It's like a philosophy on life.
Every atheist I know like cares about the environment, and most of the atheists I know are pretty serious about like environmental protection and like reducing our carbon footprint and all this sort of stuff. Like, and again, that's. If you take a biology class in college, you're gonna get that talk.
Well, and I will say it's not an ethical thing. It's literally baked in their theology, right? So really, we all think about, okay, you're gonna go to heaven forever, but depending on your eschatology, God is coming to this earth, rebooting this earth, and we're all gonna live here, depending on how you interpret, some of that end time stuff. And so when you're in the mindset of, no, God's coming, so the world can't die before then, and then this is all going to get reset back to the perfect Garden of Eden method, then you're kind of like, well, yeah, my couple of plastic straws aren't going to, who cares, right? Because
live
God's
and let
coming
die.
to reset it. Right.
Yeah. So I've heard conservatives that are trying to push I guess a Christian nationalist narrative. They said that and I think that this was prominent back when we were proving that lead, like our leaded gas, was adding lead to our environment and causing a bunch of developmental problems in children. They were saying, well, God is the only one that can change our environment. So, and so therefore we can't change our environment in this kind of fashion. And this same kind of logic has persisted into the modern era where, you know, I mean, maybe not AIG creationists, but like creationists in general have used the whole logic of, well, only God can change the environment. Therefore, you know, global climate change is
AIG is on board with that. They are.
Okay.
Can I just want to read for a moment from the Texas Republican Party platform for 2022. And I quote, and remember, these are all Christians. And I quote, number 57, environment. We oppose environmentalism that obstructs legitimate business interests and private property use, including the regulatory taking of property by governmental agencies. We oppose the abuse of the Endangered Species Act to confiscate and limit the use of personal property and to infringe on a property owner's livelihood. And we support the defunding of climate justice initiatives, the abolition of the Environmental Protection Agency, and the repeal of the Endangered Species Act. And we oppose the America the Beautiful initiative, also known as the 30 by 30 program. Now, I just want to point out, around like over 90% of the species that have been protected by the Endangered Species Act are still around today. Over 90%. So I don't know how you can say we want to repeal the Endangered Species Act on the one hand, and also be like, no, we should be stewards of the environment. Like,
I mean, I feel like it's a very let God sort them out later kind of mentality there.
I don't remember if it was the Creation Museum or the ARK Encounter. I think it was the ARK Encounter. They had to do environmental impact studies, which they hated because they didn't want to have to do that. But I'm pretty sure there is a Kentucky residents, correct me if I'm wrong, but there actually was a particular type of bird that was in that area that they would have had to have like halt construction or like move, like if they found nests of a certain bird.
Right.
And they hated that. Like that was just like and so I'm guessing that their particular environmental study wasn't as rigorous, perhaps, as some were. That's
we
just
didn't find any of these birds on our land.
Right,
citation us.
Yeah, exactly. Although I think one of the things that annoyed them was they actually had to pay an outside firm.
Right. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they had to pay someone who works for the federal government or whatever to come and check it out.
Yeah.
I would hope the federal government wouldn't be like, oh, we totally trust you to tell us whether or not.
But that was when Ken. But that was when Ken and the governor of Kentucky were like buddies, like tea drinking buddies, right? That was when.
Can you imagine? It's like they're just sitting there drinking some whiskey or something because behind closed doors. This is like, hey, there's no like endangered species on your land, and Ken's like, oh fuck no, mate.
because Ken would have said, well, no, they're just part of the bird kind, you see. And the bird kind is fine.
They could totally regenerate from fucking pigeons or something, okay?
What's that meme? Like the FBI investigated itself and found no evidence of wrongdoing.
Yeah.
I'm happy that the Kentucky governor is no longer someone who is best friends with AIG. So troublesome.
Do consistency issues.
Right. Even the idea of morality. We're not saying that all evolutionists are immoral because they have no foundation for morality. Oftentimes they are moral. And the fact that they are moral is actually contrary to their worldview. They're borrowing from the biblical worldview, ironically so.
Yeah, and of course, when you say evolution, you're talking about like a naturalistic
evolution.
Yeah.
Sure.
So let's take another iconic moment with Jeff Goldblum's character, Dr. Malcolm, and a couple of statements that he makes in the first film.
Yep.
There's no reason. No, I want to hear a review point. I really do. Yeah, don't you see the danger? Does he really? I don't think he does. Inherent in what you're doing here. Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun. It's hardly appropriate to start hurling generalizations, if I may. I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You read what others had done, and you took the next step.
That's what science does, doesn't it?
You don't take
builds on the shoulders of giants.
Right.
Yeah.
For it.
Yeah, it does. Science builds on other stuff. I'm curious in the chat. Let me know if this particular cartoon effect and the chipmunky of the voices is it tolerable, or for future tilt shifts, should I just cut the segments out entirely? Let me know what you guys prefer. If this is, fine.
You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You want to sell it. Well,
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
All right, so two big.
One thing it's just make me think of right now is where we're at on the cusp of AI stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now seeing. I used to be in software and that kind of stuff, and people I know in that field who I knew who like weren't particularly great at it. Now jumping back on board is now I can just bootstrap on top of like other people's AI research. There's a lot of that going on right now. So there's definitely going to be some irresponsible people who didn't earn what they're building on. That anyway, I don't know why I went on that tangent.
No, that's totally fair. Like, I don't know if you saw there was a report on on like AI in the Amazon stores. Did you see that?
I didn't.
Oh, basically, like, so the idea for the Amazon stores was essentially supposed to be like, you put stuff in your basket and then you just kind of push it out and it like scans as you're going and just charges your card, right? Like that's the idea. And so
yeah, I remember that.
And it turned out like 7 in 10 of those supposedly AI transactions are actually done by a company, like another company that Amazon had paid to do. Yeah, 7 in 10. So yeah.
Funny.
Well, and honestly, I feel like that section right there is more about capitalism than it is about scientific research.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And so like I totally get the analogy with AI, but I mean, I don't know. I guess as somebody that in my particular very specific field of work in computer and software engineering, I can't use AI like whatsoever. Like that's a non-starter for me. But I feel like it's more about like the capitalism of technology, right? Like, should we be developing this? And of course, the capitalists are like, well, I can make $40 billion off of this idea, so why wouldn't I make it? It's like, well, but then that'll probably cause the downfall of like society. And they're like, well, but I get 40,000 or $40 billion, so we're obviously going to develop it. And so, I guess that's kind of where, and that's where I feel like a lot of AI stuff is now, because it's like, well, we've got these large language models, right, that can interact with people and everything like that. How do we market that? How do we sell that to the American public so that they give us their money? And so I feel like that is like comparable in that way.
Yeah, no, you're actually re-emphasizing what I'm noticing is that people who just entirely want to take whatever the tech is and they run to the app store, whatever the latest thing is that they can run to, that this is the latest one. John, will you be able to, in your work, will there ever be a day when on-device LLM is something you can use? Like, because on-device LLM is something I've been playing with. Like, is that like, you can only say so much, I understand, but do you foresee a day where that is ever possible, given the current trajectory?
Currently where I work, we're specially contracting Microsoft to like implement special versions of Internet Explorer to continue to work with our shit. So, probably not in the near future.
Not even Edge using Explorer.
So Edge is something new, and even Chrome is something even newer.
Oh, I can't believe you're still supporting it. I remember it's got to have been like, it was 2018, I think, when I finally, the company I worked for we finally said, screw it, we're not exploring. We're not. It was not supporting Explorer anymore.
It was only until
man.
after 2020 that they were like, okay, now Edge is the best thing to run for these specific situations. Before that, it was like, we're specially contracting Microsoft so that we can build Explorer to work with our current systems.
So sorry, Jackson, we're leaving out of this entirely, but I was working with hospital stuff, like with medical stuff in toward the end of my software career. And and like hospitals are the last place. Like they're gonna have Internet Explorer forever. But that's just
So fun story. I was actually going through the certified ethical hacker training course, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were learning about how vulnerable a lot of the older Windows systems were. And then I remember specifically going to a doctor's office, and it's like they're running one of the most vulnerable Windows systems that have so many like hacks to like get into it. And it's like, why are you running this? I was just
because literally because they have like some proprietary scanner device that software hasn't been updated. Right, like because that was I was doing device integration stuff, and it was literally we got this weird X-ray machine that we're not willing to spend another $200,000 for. So this is what we're doing. Yeah, it's painful. Anyway, we're sidetracked now.
Lines in there. Yeah. One of them is, he says, genetic power is the most awesome force this planet's ever seen. Well, no, that's not true.
Not at all.
Have they considered God?
Awesome.
How'd I guess that?
Right. That's right. That this planet has ever seen. In fact, God himself became one of us and
I'm literally a prophet
for 30
How did I know that?
You're fucking Nostradamus there, Jackson.
That's true. How did I know he was going to say that?
John, entertain me for a minute here. Let's suppose that God became Jesus. Just go with me for this for a minute. Would that not be genetic?
I mean, I don't know what the genetic makeup of God would be, but yeah, I feel like you would be able to genetically identify
you combine Mary's X chromosome and God. If that story is true, God provided a Y chromosome, right? Like that's the only way it can work.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you magic it. Anyway.
Years, about 2,000 years ago, Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus Christ is who we call him, that is God in the flesh, Emmanuel, God with us.
Yeah.
So there's a problem with that line, but another line that caught your eye.
And the second one, he said this, that your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Which I think is a good point.
It is a good point.
Yeah.
But my question is,
I think some people would think of that.
Too bad he's an atheist. He doesn't have
so
morality.
Destructive. Even though it really helped bring about an end to World War II, there's some people who think should it have been made or been done because it is so destructive.
No.
So that's a good question.
The answer is no. It shouldn't have been done. It was a bad idea. You shouldn't have done it.
I saw a whole movie that said it was a good idea, so I don't know what you're talking about.
No, Oppenheimer does not say it's a good idea. Explicitly.
I totally agree with Jackson here. Like Oppenheimer definitely says that.
The Robert Downey Jr. character tells me that it was a good idea. That's all.
Yes, the government character definitely will tell you it's a good idea. Okay, but
Iron Man is the hero of that movie.
Right.
I think you may have skipped some parts, Paul.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
But I mean, honestly, I feel like it's kind of like a what the last few elections have been. It's like, okay, well, here's a pile of shit, but here's a less pile of shit, and we have to pick which pile of shit we really want, to pick from. And so, like with the whole nuclear situation in World War II, it was either, we develop it first or the Axis powers develop it first, because we know that they were trying to develop the technology. And so it's kind of like, who's going to develop it first? So it's really a commentary on how shitty the human race is rather than like one side or the other, because either side was going to get there first. It's just depends on who was going to get there. And so I think that it's horrible in general, like the entire development of the technology. But at the same time, it's like, well, we have to pick from two bad situations.
Well, because Germany had been defeated by the time that we use it. And as far as I'm aware, like we didn't think that Japan was like on the cusp of anything like that, and they were basically ready to surrender, as I understand. Their condition was essentially like, "Hey, can we keep the emperor? But otherwise, yeah, we'll surrender." And we were kind of like, "No," or "We won't." I don't think we said no. I think we said we won't tell you. We won't. You need to surrender unconditionally, not with this condition. It was a good movie. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was the best movie I watched last year.
Oh yeah, it was definitely better than Barbie.
Then what? Then Barbie? I don't know. I like Barbie. I thought it was fun. It was all right. Napoleon was
like,
okay. It was
that's
all right.
like comparing. That's like comparing turkey dinner and a pizza slice, right? It's kind of okay.
Yeah,
they're not.
I think so.
They're not meant to be the same thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like and I thought it was fine. It was all right. It's okay movie. Napoleon was fine. Like it was all right.
No, it was not. Okay, we'll fight you on that. I didn't.
I thought it was okay. I don't know enough about the history to make comments on the historicity of that. And so like from what I've read, like it was very bad on the history. But like acting wise, I like Joaquin Phoenix.
Well, no, so acting it was fine. I thought the storytelling was very sloppy and disjointed. So Shannon and I have a tradition. It's been my tradition for a long time, and I brought it with me here that we watch every movie that's nominated for Best Picture. I've done that since like the 90s. Since I was working in the film industry, that was just the thing. Because in order to vote for the Academy Awards, you have to sign that you saw all the films. And I worked on Academy campaign. That doesn't matter. It's my tradition. So anyway, we got so excited when Napoleon didn't get nominated because we tried watching it and we tried several starts, and then when it didn't get nominated, like, yay, we don't have to finish it. So we didn't actually ever.
I actually haven't seen Napoleon just because, like, I don't know, it looks like a film that would be boring to me.
It was like it definitely had like parts of it where it was just kind of like, oh my gosh, can we? It was a long movie. And some parts of it, were like there were battles and stuff, and there were parts that were non-battle scenes where I was like, I felt engaged, but there were also parts where it felt really slow, and that's why I said like it was okay, it was all right.
No, it's not terrible. It's just
it's not terrible.
It wasn't up to the same caliber. So since this is a movie, this is on topic, right? Because it's a movie show. The best movie, if you guys didn't see American Fiction, in the audience and on the panel, of the Academy of the nominated films last year that didn't get a lot of attention, American Fiction was delicious. So go seek that one out whenever it's on streaming. It was great. So we are now at, I like to check on the half hours. So we're now at 2 hours and 30.
American, I don't think I'm good for a little bit longer. I haven't seen American Fiction yet, but on the topic of Barbie, like I totally agree with Paul that it's definitely like they're not meant to serve the same audience necessarily, or at least the same wants. But I have to laugh at the fact that like the Barbie Ken song won out at the Oscars when Margot Robbie or anybody else associated with Greta, female leads with the film didn't get nominated at all. And it's like, did you guys see the film? Because this is the exact fucking thing that we
right. That is the
problem.
That is in terms of the irony of it all was like Hollywood learned nothing because they we'll nominate the man from the film. That's what we will do. Like the only thing more insulting was that Will Ferrell had also been nominated, right?
Oh my god,
yeah. All right, so I need to bio break quickly. So do you two want to interact with the audience or just listen to AIG for a couple minutes?
I mean, we could do like juggling or something. I don't know. I'll toss the ball to you.
Because you guys can't. Well, no, you guys can't hit play and pause. So I can either hit play,
right,
and then for 2 minutes you guys
I think
listen to them.
I think we can. We'll wait for you to come back.
Or do you? Okay, so you're just gonna chat amongst yourselves and the audience. That's what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
all right. All right. I will. I'll be back in a moment.
All right. Now that he's gone, we got to make fun of him. He won't see this part. It's fine. It's fine. Do some tricks. Yes, I'll do a kick flip. I don't know how to do a kick flip.
With God, anything's possible. I'm just telling you right now, there, Jackson.
My tattoos. I don't have any tattoos. I have 0 tattoos. Not a one. He must have been talking about you.
Oh yeah. Okay. So hold on. Let me get back to this. Okay. So I do have a number of tattoos. This one right here. Sorry, it's a Jesus fish, if you could tell.
Oh,
that was DNA, but I doubled it and flipped it, so, to where it's a DNA.
Okay, I like it.
As a big fuck you. And then of course I got
I think.
I think, and then his first ideas, and then I got a fox, if you can see right there, for my son.
Oh, cool.
Because he likes foxes, and I got a Paper Mario.
Oh yeah.
And then I designed this right here, the mushroom. Sorry, they're asking about my tattoos and everything like that. And then if you could tell, I've got a Batman on my on this chest. And then over here, I've got a death shroom. I don't know who out there knows about death shrooms in the Mario verse, but they'll cause you to die. And then I've got Joker on this arm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I've got a couple on my back.
No.
Yeah, I've got a few on my back that I'm not going to show, because that would require me taking off my shirt. Nobody wants to see that horror show.
I've never. Shannon, you definitely should take over. Come on, take over. I've never gotten tattooed. I don't know. Oh no, he's back. I mean, no, Shannon, don't do it.
I can hear my pup barking like crazy, so she's hopefully she's taking over on that front.
I forgot to show this one right here.
Oh.
So this is an amino acid. You can represent amino acids with letters. And so this one right here spells out I am star stuff.
Cool. That's really neat.
That's my Dexcom, by the way. I'm diabetic, so I have a continuous glucose monitor. But yeah.
That's super cool. I like that.
Everybody asks about it, and like I have to tell the very religious phlebologists down here. That's people that take your blood, because I every like 2 or 3 months I have to get my blood drawn, and they always ask, "Oh, what's that tattoo?" And I'm like, "It says I am star stuff," and they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, I believe in God."
All right, let's get some more AIG. I think we're gonna go to the bottom of the hour, and then we'll be done. So let's see what we can see, how much we can get.
That ethical question, but
it makes sense though in the biblical worldview,
right?
So with his particular character, which seems to be a naturalist, doesn't believe in anything supernatural, just evolution.
Clearly, if he thinks genetic is the most powerful force,
where does he get his morality?
What is his source of morality? To say you should or should not do something is rooted in the idea that there's something good and something bad.
It's almost
there is no God.
sad
then there
how
are no
predictable
absolutes.
they are.
Well, they're not
I don't
breaking
know why
up.
they got to bring morality in this.
They're not breaking out new material for the streaming audience. I don't.
Sure,
think.
You got to buy the book for that one.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, do they not realize? And I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I feel like a Christian worldview is just as subjective as any non-religious worldview, because we're just choosing to base our morality in something different. And it's all subjectively based. Like, they subjectively choose to base their morality in God and whatever God wants. That gets them into trouble, as William Lane Craig knows, with him claiming that it's better to kill Canaanite babies than allow them to live. But for
that's
like
not
atheists,
the claim. That's the claim. The claim is that if God says to do it, then you should go ahead.
John out here bringing up the Euthyphro dilemma.
Right. Well, no. So I remember a clip that I responded to a while back where William Lane Craig says that it's better to kill the Canaanite babies than to allow them to live.
Yeah. So did you see his new one on? He was on Alex O'Connor's channel.
I haven't finished it
because he doubled down. He doubled down exactly on what you just said. He was like, "No, God was doing those babies a favor."
Right. Yeah, that's his opinion. It's been his opinion for like more than like 20 years or more.
Because that's why
he's always said that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they actually just they have a little discussion there about who won't debate who. But yeah, because Dawkins says, yeah, I can't go along with anyone who thinks that baby killing is a favor.
Yeah,
so
that's totally fair.
Yeah.
Things just relative based on your opinion.
Because I said so, that's why.
Right?
Yeah, so if naturalism is true, everything just is.
Yeah.
There is no ought. There is no should.
all.
It's just everything just is.
So the idea that he has
There's no
I have to
ought
take
without
points out for the egregious use of Indiana Jones.
So wait, but that was good Indiana Jones. So you're saying that you don't like that they used it?
I don't like that they use the clip like in their favor.
Right?
Like,
yeah. No, that's right. So we don't like that they're selling Indiana Jones. To be clear, yeah,
right.
Because that was the other franchise I worked on. I don't talk about it as much, but I did work on that franchise too. So I'm yeah.
Paul, is it
Wait,
I'm all,
Indiana Jones
Lucas
4 or like previous to 4?
So previous to 4, but so like so I worked on all the DVD, like Indiana Jones was one of the last sets of franchise films on DVD. I don't know if you recall that, but it took forever because there was so many people had different rights sharing and stuff like that. Anyway, I worked on all the Indiana Jones DVDs when it first came to DVD. So I got to work with Harrison and Young Indiana Jones was a big deal. So I worked in Young Indy. But Indiana Jones 4 is why I quit, because I read the script and it was literally like, no, you're re-upping. It's like the Army. You're re-upping for 3 years, right? And I had just gone through, sorry, everybody, I'd just gone through episodes 1, 2, and 3. And I read Indiana Jones 4. I'm like, I've been fighting fan base. Disney Star Wars didn't exist back then. So like the prequels then were the bad Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And so my life had been like trying to convince people that Jar Jar was great and like, hey, this isn't so bad.
Hey, I love Revenge of the Sith. I'll die on that hill.
I'm glad you did. I actually, I think I like to think I helped make it a little better than it would have been if I hadn't have been there. But when I read the script for Indy 4, that it was literally like, nope. And Pixar was hiring, and it was just the whole thing.
So let me get this straight. Aliens is your line in the sand.
Yeah. Well, so I'd read several versions of the Indy 4 script as it was progressing. And the one that they went with was a blender. Like, so they'd had different writers do different things, and then they just George and Steven took the scenes that they liked from different ones, and like we're just going to put these in a script with some very loose connecting tissue. Like the ant scene and the monkey scene, like those were all from different movies, and it was not working. I didn't know that it was going to get bought, and we'd eventually all work for Disney. If I'd have known that, maybe things would have been different, but. Anyway, blah blah blah. Indy, I still have a stop slot for Indy.
That's like, it's really wild to me. Like, so you like worked with like George Lucas and like Harrison Ford.
I used to have my hands in George Lucas's shirt on a regular basis.
That's a weird way to put that, Paul.
I know it is.
It makes it sound like you were twisting his nipples on a daily basis.
People get to interpret that as I want. I was, of course, a Christian at the time,
right?
So there wouldn't have been any of that. No, you had to have certain security clearance to be in the George meetings, and so those of us who were in the George meetings, we had to pull double duty. So I would sometimes do boom mic stuff and or lapel mic stuff while we were in the meeting, because George, and it was this one. A great thing about him was like literally every meeting he was in, he had recorded. Because you never knew like when it was going to be good for like a DVD extra thing. And he was very serious about documenting this stuff. So
you were like top level at like LucasArts.
So you were like listening in, and you were like,
LucasArts was the video game company, but I also worked there.
Sorry, what's the correct?
Lucasfilm was the
Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, I
have a friend I'm going to tell this to, and he's going to cry. Because like I remember from your videos that you had like worked on stuff. I didn't realize you were like your big wig.
I don't. it was an adventure. It was an adventure in my life that I've done.
Fascinating.
With. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not. This one's not that story. I'm not tonight, and maybe never. But there is a story.
I don't know what that is.
you know what Mensa is.
I know what Mensa. Yeah, I know what Mensa is because Charles Jackson's always talking about it.
That's right. Yeah, then that's actually part of where it went. Was like literally like, at what point? What are you compensating for that you need to have a Mensa card, right?
Okay, fair enough.
At some point,
it's literally a pawn to shut people up. Like, are you in Mensa? I didn't think so.
Yeah, no. So, I've been in the room with some very, very, very smart people in my life, and not a one of them ever told me they were smart.
That's
fair. Because they they don't need to overcompensate. Like, I mean, they are smart, so they don't need to be like, well, I'm
exactly right. Yeah, like
that's true. Yeah.
Without name dropping. Yeah, we're gonna not anyway. We're going.
He's pretty passionate in the clip too. He's banging the table. Right? He's kind of outraged about the whole thing. There's a moral gumption behind it, but where's that morality come from? And I know it's a movie, but people in reality get fired up as well. And those who share his worldview, although they may be passionate, their passion is not rooted in a consistent worldview.
What are the odds that they like watched Jurassic Park and took away like the actual message of the film that you like shouldn't bypass bioethics for capitalist gain? Do you think zero? Okay.
No, I mean, think about who you're talking about. This is AIG, okay? Yeah. Like, they are all, like, capitalism is both their enemy and their friend, because, like, the only reason why they exist is capitalism.
That's true.
And, like, the biggest opponent they have is fucking capitalism, because they have to maintain, like, a certain amount of revenue in order to continue to operate and people to take them seriously.
Sure. I'm listening, like, to their whole analysis, and like everything they bring up is like, you know, about the dinosaurs or about like, and there's validity in critiquing the dinosaurs and like whether are they animals or are they monsters, that whole thing. But like everything they bring up is, yeah, where's your morality come from? Actually, no, genetics isn't the greatest power on earth. That's God. You know, like, this has nothing to do whatsoever with the movie.
But also, yeah, like Answers to Genesis is not Christian nationalism, but it's Christian nationalism adjacent.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Right.
And so they would never say capitalism is bad, because that would cut off way too much of their base.
Well, they would say, like, you know, don't base your life around money, right? Don't make that your God or something like that, right?
If they truly believe that, though, I feel like they wouldn't consistently change the attractions that they have at either AIG or ARK Encounter, because they are constantly like changing things up. I mean, like any other for-profit like amusement park type area that is wholly dependent on capitalism in order to survive, they constantly have to, you know, bring in new attractions and everything like that. Like I remember years ago when both KC and I went to the ARK Encounter, they were busy trying to build the Tower of fucking Babel.
They still are. They still
are.
Yeah,
the Tower of Babel attraction at the ARK Encounter, and like they were going to use it to teach people how apparently different languages came into existence. And
they didn't learn anything from the story.
Right. I feel like if they were really like against capitalism, or at least they didn't care about capitalism, then they wouldn't, you know, try to do different things to attract new visitors. I mean, it would just be, here's the gospel, like it or love it. This is what it is. Feel bad.
Well, I'm sure they recognize the inherent need to like keep their operations running so they can reach, you know, millions of people. And which, you know, yeah. I'm sure they would say like we have to use the tools that are available to us in this fallen world to reach.
You know, people. At least it's not as bad as Dinosaur Adventureland here in Alabama. Okay? People die there. At least they care about the public safety.
Oh God, yeah, you're
Ken's
right.
got enough money that if someone died there, he would be able to cover it up.
Obviously,
they like Answers to Genesis is is $180 million a year business, right? So you can't like that's a pretty big 501c3. That's at that point you're not, and they also have a for-profit branch because they do different activities in their for-profit nonprofit, because in the for-profit branch they can get away with some certain tax exemptions.
Sure.
But their hiring practices, which they want to be their prejudicial hiring practices, they need to have a commercial entity so that they can definitely discriminate on that side. So they play very fast and loose with both of those sides. I think the worst thing they do is, and this is very little publicized, and this is on me, I should do it more. They're very predatory on seniors. And it's specifically about wills. So one of the things they very much do is when you sign up for the newsletters, you go to the attractions, and they see if you're in like the 60 plus category, they will literally keep peppering you with messages like, do your children believe in young earth? And if they don't deserve, if your children have fallen astray, they're going to waste your money and they're not going to do right with it. If your children are not following along with your current beliefs, you better leave us that money. And they're very predatory about changing people's wills. And that's one of the practices. I need to talk about that more.
Yeah, please do, because you I don't know, broadcasting, I guess, like Hemet Meta way back in the day when the like Arkonomic stuff, that was great. Right. I loved all that stuff. That was hilarious. You know, like Ken Ham selling the park to himself for whatever, like $10, whatever, and then the city being like, unless you want us to, or you want us to like charge you for the land that we subsidized, you better sell it back. You know, that was great. I love all that stuff.
Yeah. If it wasn't so sad, but they elected a weird president, and all of a sudden that stuff seemed less wacky. I think we missed the super chat. Brain Cramp, thank you for the $5 super chat. AIG stopped building the Tower of Babel because due to a communication breakdown. Yeah. According to their latest some of their latest updates with investors that they have, that is still on. I don't know exactly in what form it's going to take. I think they're just building a model of a ziggurat. I think is what they're doing. But
they don't want to get it too close.
When I went to the ARK encounter, like there was literally nearly nobody there, and they had 3 jackasses there, like 3 donkeys is what I'm saying. Like I feel like there wouldn't have been 3 donkeys on the ARK. Like I don't think that those were part of the groups that would have been part of the 7, right? Would donkeys have been?
Because you can't eat them, right? Because it was the unclean had the 7, or the clean,
right?
The
That's
clean
what
animals
I thought.
that you could eat. Yeah. I don't think you're allowed to eat donkeys.
I thought you were hoping you saw like Ken Bodie and Nathaniel Jensen or something. Sorry.
They have big. Were you there when they had their giant like conference center? Because like now they're making their money doing conferences and stuff there.
I don't know if they had the conference center. I just, I mean, I went through the entire park and we went through everything. I don't remember a conference center.
Did they have the Rainbow Ark yet? Did you walk through a big they built a big rainbow archway that you have to walk through to get to the Ark now?
Totally not gay.
Oh, not gay no, I definitely didn't have to do that. The biggest thing that we saw when we went, this was like 2018 or 2019 or something like that. And it was when they had the dragons, like the dragon displays and everything like that there. I don't know. I think that was probably before the rainbow, because we didn't have to walk through the rainbow. There was a triceratops at the very front well, I guess that was a creation museum. Definitely not at the ARK encounter was there like a rainbow anything. It looked really kind of like run down and like it was not exactly well prepared. And also like they presented whales as both surviving the flood because they're whales, but also the predecessors to whales like existing on the Ark. And so like I was thoroughly confused by that.
Yeah, what's his name? Todd Wood says like I can't rule out that Pakicetus was on the Ark. Yeah, like one of the ancestors of whales. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's very not gay.
this
Totally not good.
this archway you see now, you have to go through this archway to
no
to
Yeah,
get
I
through.
definitely didn't see that. There was no archway when we were
So
there.
one of the things I think was super smart, like when COVID hit and they had to shut down most of their ticket sales, they doubled down and they got their investors like, we're gonna spend this time. They spent it building. So they have this massive behind here. They have this massive 20,000-foot convention center where they can just host. Because I think, as you say, John, right? Like, how many times can you go if you're one of the faithful? How many times can you go see the Ark? Like, you can only go once a year. You're not going to go every weekend. So they found other streams of revenue. So they built an observatory and this massive convention center. Anyway, part of what they built was this funny rainbow thing, which is that was part of their Take Back the Rainbow.
Yeah, can you imagine being like a father and being like, all right, kids, let's go and see the Ark Encounter and figure out how horrible we all fucking are for the 12th fucking time.
Yeah, right? Yeah. That they it's not quite repeat like a Disney or something, right? Where you want to
Right. They had, I don't know, whenever you were there, Paul, because I think I remember you going there.
I was there before you, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. They had this entire exhibit dedicated to like how depraved mankind was. And so it was like it was like some current event stuff and then like projected future event stuff.
That was the one where it was like the brick on the walls, and they had like black and white film footage, but some future. Yeah, that one. And like just randomly words like abortion, and just words. Like, oh, I'm supposed to.
Yeah, and then like they had like different exhibits for like Adam and Eve, and the entire story for that. It felt like the Stations of the Cross. Like me, I'm a former Catholic, so like the Stations of the Cross were a big thing when I was growing up. But this was like, they had different things, and like it was Adam and Eve and like the Garden of Eden. And then I remember getting to this one part, I believe maybe this was in the Creation Museum, but I remember getting to this one part, and it's like there was this dragon fruit, right, that they had that was representative of the fruit.
That's right.
And like, yeah, and then it had this weird serpent creature, and then like Adam and Eve were like in this pond and they were eating the dragon fruit. And like now
that's
having actually having actually eaten dragon fruit, like I don't know why they would have eaten it and be like, this is good.
Well, that was Ken Ham. They wanted to get away from the apple, right? Like they wanted to make you not think about because an apple isn't necessarily
right. Traditionally, it's represented as an apple, but it just like the actual text just says it's a fruit of some kind.
Right, exactly. So they wanted to just like they try and go with they don't want people to think about the bathtub arcs is one of their big things that they want people not to.
The what?
The bathtub arcs. They don't like in Sunday school when like people depict the Ark as basically a couple of bus lengths and like the giraffes' necks are like everyone's on the deck. Right, the penguins and it's shaped like a big letter U.
Okay.
Because they think that reinforces that it's a silly story, as opposed to their very
that's what they think.
As opposed to their very serious boat-shaped building that's anchored to 3 other buildings.
right. Of course. Yeah, we gotta get rid of all that silly stuff. Yeah,
obviously, that's the most ridiculous part of the entire thing.
Exactly.
Who is it? I think it was actually you, Paul, who posted the like how they have a video where they're like, this is like the Ark described in Utnapishtim's global flood story. That's ridiculous, isn't it? Like a square Ark? Are you kidding me? So silly. Anyway, here's our Ark. Totally fine.
I think wasn't it correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but like the way that Ark Encounter has the Ark created, it's actually got attachments onto it that only existed like in the age of exploration, like the stern, I think maybe like the I can't remember. I can't think.
Yeah, no, the specific like the specific shape of it is they've made it. They've used nautical technology that was obviously like and knowledge.
Mhm.
It's obviously like at least 1500s and later, right?
Right.
But what they're trying to say was, well, can you prove that God didn't tell Noah not to use an optimal shape?
It's freaking magic. Yeah.
So
obviously, when you're talking about magic, God revealed the perfect shape for a fucking boat.
you can't just like the thing is, well, God, in the Bible, it's just recorded that basically Noah just got the length, width, and height. That's all he got in the instructions. But by so Tim Chafee, who we've been reviewing here, have you read his Noah fan fiction novels that he writes?
Oh gosh.
Right.
Oh, you haven't.
I mean, isn't the story itself a fan fiction? I don't know.
Well, I mean, theoretically, but so Tim Chafee has wrote a series of novels that
I think I've heard of that.
Noah novels. Where are they? Where he takes the weird story that they've come up with in the ARK encounter and made it into like a dramatization, which of course.
Okay, so my guess is it's not like the Snow White fan fiction where like there's a bunch of gay stuff that happens.
No,
this is like
he's not shipping. He's not shipping Ham and Seth or anything. No, there's only so many. It would have to be incest, right? Because it was all incest. So, anyway, in the Remnant trilogy, if you want to get the fictional backstory of what they've done there, yeah, God definitely had an ongoing discussion with Noah about not just the dimensions but also these shapes and the various things. So.
I love.
I mean, it's crazy. Sorry, go ahead, Jackson.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. I was just gonna say something stupid.
I was just gonna say it's crazy how much like ad hoc shit they tack on to like what's actually in the Bible, because it's like I before I actually read these sections of the Bible, which I read them again with KC when we were going through, like we've read through the entire Old Testament, skipping like inconsequential like Psalms and poems and all this other stuff. We've read through the entire story of the Old Testament, and like going through that and reading rather what exactly the Bible says about all of this stuff, and then hearing creationists talk about it, it's like two different stories because they tack so much onto it that has to be there in order for their concepts to be like reasonable,
Yep. They completely ignore. So Deuteronomy 4:2, do not add to what I command to you and do not subtract from it. Right? That verse. So they had so much backlash. They had to put up a sign. So now the first sign you see there is their creative license sign.
I saw that. I got a picture of that. Like, like the very first in the ARK encounter, when you enter, it's like we have used creative license with many of our props and everything like that. And
because
it's
everyone
like,
was accusing them of literally breaking commands. Because Noah's wife didn't have a name, and you're calling her Naomi or whatever it is that they're calling her.
That's
yeah. Perfect. They have like entire. Well, I mean, I know that you've covered this, Paul, but they have whole like rooms that they've constructed for all of the members of Noah's family. Yeah. But not only that, but they have processes for like dealing with like all the animal shit and everything like that.
Out of the one window.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, where does God lay that out in the Bible?
You have to.
I did not know that, and that makes me so happy. I'm so glad that I now know this. I feel enriched.
Oh, they have like an entire section dedicated to cages that whole animal sculptures are like built in, and it's like, oh, this is the predecessor for like cats or the feline family, or like and like I was saying with the whole whale thing, like they had an entire cage that was set up for the predecessor to the whales, totally disregarding the fact that they also said in the ARK encounter that whales didn't need to be on the ARK.
Yep. We do have a super chat from Rosina. Slashfic is a subset of fanfic, which is true. Yep, not all fanfic is slashfic, but a lot. A lot is. And on that note, we have reached the bottom of the hour, and we've had this lovely discussion about the ARK Encounter. I feel like we don't need to go back to Tim and Brian. We're just going to let them fade off into the background. We can maybe do a part 2 one day if we feel like it. Because we covered roughly half of their episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was really disappointing because they were going back. Like, it's not like they covered one movie and then they covered the next movie or whatnot. They were going back and forth between 1 and 2. Right. You know, trying to connect the two. Well, I know that they're connected, like they're in the same like Jurassic Park universe kind of thing. But I mean, they were doing a movie review, but they were kind of mixing up both of them. The first 2 at least.
And since I had to cartoonize, I know that they had a couple of clips from 3 as well, which is like, why? 3 was like purely just an action film. There was nothing philosophical in 3, but it just stands to get pteranodons on the screen.
Apparently, there were multiple names for Noah's wife. Fascinating.
In the Ark Encounter or in the Bible?
The Genesis Rabbah Midrash lists Naamah, the daughter of Lamech and sister of Tubal-Cain, as the wife of Noah, as does the 11th century Jewish commentator Rashi in his commentary on Genesis 4:2.
Gotcha.
Gnostic literature of the first few centuries AD calls Noah's wife Noria, including texts ascribed to her as reported by Epiphanius.
Maybe that's why I thought it was Naomi. That sounds about right.
But I think that's interesting that it's like different I don't know what you call them, I guess traditions or literature give her different names. That's kind of neat.
You know, honestly, what I don't understand is like why, like a lot of creationists say that, oh, well, there was, you know, humans had the perfect genome up until original sin. And then after that point, like shit went sour, right? Why doesn't this whole, like, it feels like Noah would have to have a perfect genome in order for Noah and his whole family to like fuck themselves into populating the entire world. Like it doesn't make sense to me, but you know, I'm just an engineer.
If you guys haven't looked up the Book of Enoch, the Book of Enoch was written in the time of exile, the Babylonian exile, roughly. And it was a retelling of Genesis and Exodus through the eyes of Noah's father.
Okay.
And so a lot of that stuff I know goes back to the Book of Enoch when they were trying to basically make sense of Jewish history in light of the fact that they didn't have their territory anymore. And then
can you imagine Noah's father's like, I don't remember what Noah's wife's name was. Naomi, Nahiri. I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
She could have been one of those blue avatar fucks. I don't know.
3rd century BCE, I think is post exilic. I don't know. It was in the that whole after they lost and then went back, I guess. Second Temple period, probably. Anyway, I've had enough rum and coke to get through the show and to not be as sure on my history as I used to be. So it is almost 1 o'clock in the morning for me. So I am going to sign off. Jackson, tell people what you're doing these days and where they can find you if they want to see more of you.
What I'm doing these days, working. That's all I do is work. But you can find me on YouTube at Jackson Wheat. I don't have a cool name. Like Godless Engineer or Paulogia. It's just me, Jackson Wheat. I'm lame.
If my name was Jackson Wheat, I would go with it too. That's pretty cool.
I don't do as many whale sex videos as I used to. I've been doing for the last 3 years a series on The Ancestor's Tale, which is a really thick book by Richard Dawkins. It's my favorite nonfiction book. It goes backwards through evolutionary history. So we've been doing a deep dive chapter by chapter on that. And so I'm also on, I've got the Rockford there that RJ Downard and I co-wrote. We're working on volume 2 because that is only volume 1. Thank you. I'm terrible at hawking my wares. Apparently larger than Gary Habermas's book.
We'll see.
I take that as a point of pride. You know, I enjoy being larger than the competition.
Gary Habermas's book is on the resurrection. Let's see where you are. Oh, you're not.
Oh
you're
no!
He's a little fatter.
Oh man. Now I feel let down. Okay.
Yep.
And then I'm on Twitter. Again, I think it's Jackson Wheat 1. So
cool. And Godless Engineer, even though we are on your channel, some of us are on your channel. Let the rest of us know where you are.
Right. Sorry, I lost my headset for a second. So yeah, just Godless Engineer. I have a video coming up this week where I'm actually responding to Than Christophilus. He recently debated Matt Dillahunty on the resurrection. He put out a video on the empty tomb, and he's got some bad argumentation there as far as the empty tomb goes. So I've got part of that going up later on this week, and then I've got other things that are going on my channel. Of course, I live stream every Friday night, right in the middle of Paul's live stream. So I'm sure that everybody that's watching on Paul's channel right now is definitely going to come watch me on Friday nights.
I don't do every Friday night, so they can go find you on those other nights.
Yes, definitely. Yep. I will be the filler for the Paul fix. But I mean, we have a pretty good structured show on Friday nights. Like I cover news, I cover comments that I get, I cover a video that my members pick for me and everything like that. So, it's a pretty fun time. But yeah, come over there, check us out and everything like that. And I guess we've always got some great stuff going on.
Sounds good. We'll read this one last super chat because they got it just in time. Remove that last part about the NDEs and Jackson Wheats is bigger. NDEs is filler. You're right. This resurrection book inexplicably reprints part of Gary's previous work on near-death experiences for no good reason. So he
just gotta throw them in there.
Stuck an extra book in there. So if you had again some Noah fan fiction that you wrote and you just stuck it on the end of your book. So
I was thoroughly underwhelmed by his book, but I didn't read it completely, but I read enough to know that it was just general apologetic bullshit, and that's really sad for somebody who's been working on it for 10
14
years
14
years
with assistance with people of a staff.
Because I remember you posted about it, Paul, right after you read it, and you said something like it was meh or something like that.
It's if you've read any of Gary's books, this is just the same but more. I don't know.
Yeah. That's what I took away from it. I read, like I said, I didn't read all of it, but the portions that I did read, it's the same shit that Gary Habermas has said for the past 14 years. It's just condensed into this one book, which is apparently the first of 3 or 4?
Four.
So you've got 4 more. You got 3 more books of bullshit.
The next one comes in September, so I gotta brace myself.
Oh my god! What could there be left to say? Isn't that book 1,000 pages?
It is, but interesting. The third one is the one I really want because he's finally going to publish. Allegedly, he's actually going to publish his research. So he's all this stuff's allegedly based on surveys that he's done, so that he has numbers to back up consensus thought about X, Y, or Z. But he's never published.
Right. And the funny thing is about Gary Habermas and his research, I say that in quotes, is that if you actually go chronologically through his whole proofs, the minimal facts thing, it starts out as 12 facts, and then it gets pared down to 10, 8, 6. Oh, now there's 6 plus 1. And it's as it progresses, it keeps getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and the facts keep getting more meaningless and more meaningless as far as facts to prove the resurrection. So I mean, it's just it's interesting.
But I will. That's something I will continue to be covering because resurrection, as it is for John, is kind of my jam. So. All right. Well, that is we've gone on long enough. Check out John and Jackson. I am going to try and get some sleep at some point. Thank you everyone for watching. Thanks for hanging out with us. We will do more Tilt Shift in the future if you so let us know that you want us to. Let us know in the comments if you want part 2 or more other Tilt Shift. All right. Thanks. Good night.